Hello, everyone. I'm Amanda Benjamin.
I'm Paul Carganilla, and we welcome you to our mystifying show in which we explore mysteries of the unknown.
As they waited, they could see the creature walk up to the porch, peek into the house through the windows, and even pushed against the door. In this live stream and podcast, we'll tell tales of the paranormal and unsolved, while mixing in a little fun and live music as well. Welcome to the Magical Mystery Hour. Hi, everybody.
Ooh, it's time to get spooky, and we have a special guest with us.
So excited.
Do you want to introduce her?
Well, oh my gosh. I feel like everybody knows you already, but I guess they don't.
Not everybody.
I
yes,
know.
There are some people in the chat tonight.
I just feel like we all got to be friends. So our special guest tonight is Darcy Staniforth. Okay. We met Darcy at the Kellogg House in Los Angeles, the OC, doing a ghost tour through Emily Thatcher. So we're eternally grateful to Emily for making this connection. And I'm so thankful that you said yes to coming on the show.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here. And it like, we all with performing backgrounds and fast friends, when you spend a night in a haunted house for, hours and then listening to me. So I'm eternally grateful you'll listen to me for a few hours. So
yes, so excited.
Well, of course, while we were on our tour, we're all just, blown away by your awesome personality and your improv skills and storytelling, of course, overall. Yes. But you're also a freaking awesome human being. So cool. We're so glad that you're here.
Thanks.
Let's throw it all the way back to the beginning and figure out how the heck do you become a ghost tour guide?
Yes.
How I become a ghost tour guide is that I know this is going to come as a huge shock to everyone. I'm extroverted. What? No.
No
oh my
way.
Gosh. Holy moly.
Shrinking
What? Yeah.
Violet.
Exactly. And the lockdown part of the pandemic was not great for me. Ugh. So while I've been interested in the paranormal since I was little, but coming out of lockdown, I was like, I'm doing stuff in the paranormal again, and I also want to find ways to like connect people with history, and then also talk about ghost stories. And I knew that Haunted OC did haunted historical tours because I didn't want to be part of like a jump scare attraction. I don't have anything against jump scare attractions. I'm just not a jump scare person.
No, me neither. When you said that, you're like, no jump scares here. I was like,
woo, right? And I really stress that on the tours because some people have, like, I had a woman who was like, do you promise? And I was like, yeah, why would I make that up? And she had been on a tour, not with us, that had said, you're like, oh yeah, no jump scares, and they jump scared her. And I was like, don't do that to people. Don't do that to people.
So rude.
Yeah, so rude. So I honestly, I reached out and said, are you all looking for tour guides right now? And Ernie and Charles reached back and said, yeah, send us your resume. And so I'm very like, museum studies, performance, like, here are all these things. I sent them. And then they invited me to a dinner with like all the other tour guides, and we started chatting and found out we had a lot in common through different folks in the paranormal. And it was literally in the middle of spooky season, so it was like the busiest time for everybody. And so I reached back out after that and said, I'm still very interested. I hope everything went well. And they said, what do you think about taking on the Kellogg House, because the Heritage Museum of Orange County is bringing them back and we're taking them over? And I'm like, I get to be inside a beautiful old Victorian home for many, many hours during the month, and then I get to talk about history and I get to tell ghost stories. Yep, I will do that. No, absolutely.
Just like it just literally crossed my mind with how much time you spend there. Do you ever just like pretend like you belong there, like you're like a Victorian, like do you ever just sit there and be like, this is my house and this is how we live, and I live in 18 something? Like, does that ever happen?
I mean, one, I love where you're going with this.
That would definitely be me.
I mean, I take great care of that house. And as you all know on the tour, I say, like,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is not our house, this is Helen's house.
Yes.
But I will say that there have been so many synchronicities, ones that I don't talk about on the tour, that I feel like have brought me to that house.
Ooh.
Like, it has been stuff that I'm like, I can't ignore that. Like, I can't ignore this connecting with this, connecting with this. And so if you want me to talk about some of those, I will be more than happy to. But it is getting to a point where I'm like, I feel like I got called to the
Yeah,
house.
you belong there.
I think you mentioned it. We must have got the VIP tour
I
because I believe you did mention the synchronicities when we were there. But I am a huge, wildly into synchronistic stuff.
Yes.
I even wrote a screenplay about that kind of stuff.
Good.
But I would love for you to share what those events were that led you there.
Sure.
And really quick, we got a note from Craig to say, Darcy, can you turn your volume down like just this much?
Yes. Is that better, Craig? Is that better? I don't want to be.
I know, right?
Or I'll like back up,
No,
right?
okay.
I'll back up.
Everybody says it's great.
Great.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Good. You're welcome. Happy to. So, you know, I reached out to them, and then the first day, so this is the end of 2021 is when I reach out. And then the very beginning of 2022 is when I do the first walkthrough. Because they're going to give me the ghost stories, they're going to give me the tour of the house, and it is then going to be my job to put the tour together. And so I do this full walkthrough with Ernie, our former director, Jamie, and her amazingly sweet bloodhound, Orville Sue, that day. Like, just amazing, sweet baby. So we do the walkthrough, and I get done with the initial walkthrough, because Jamie's going to give me kind of the lay of the land. And I'm so excited. And I call my mom afterwards, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just finished doing this walkthrough of, you know, of the Kellogg house, and I'm going to be touring there. And I said, and you'd love the director. Her name is Jamie. And my mom goes, yeah, I know Jamie. And she says Jamie's last name. And she's like, Jamie and I are birthday twins. We're in the women's club together. I'm like, what? So not only in the same women's club, they also share the same birthday. So that was like,
wow.
Okay. All right, got it.
It's a little coincidence there.
So that's like the first thing. So then as I'm like researching more and getting into the tour, on one of the early tours, I had been, you know, there's so much in the house that's donated. So unless it's really tied to the Kellogg, I don't know a lot of provenance on things. Like, I'm just like, that is a cool thing we have. And we have this oil painting in the rear parlor of a man's head and beard. And a gentleman had asked, and we get asked all the time, is that Hiram? I'm like, it's not Hiram, but it's a man, and you know, it's a really cool painting. And this gentleman's like, well, he is a Mason. And I was like, how do you know? And very small on like it's not even on his lapel, it's like the middle of his shirt is a square and compass. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so that night I went back to do more research, and I start looking up Hiram's obituary, which is a very lengthy obituary. And I'm reading about Hiram belonging to different fraternal organizations, including the Masons. And he was a member of the Santa Ana Lodge, which is 241. And my husband is also a Mason. And so I was like, hey, what lodge are you in? And he's like, oh, 241. I was like, what? I said, so you and Hiram are not just Masonic brothers, you're Masonic brothers from the same lodge. So Santa Ana eventually became Tustin.
Wow.
And so they are in the same lodge all these years apart. So there is that. So then in trying to investigate further, and I really believe in going to visit like graves and see the folks who you're talking about and where their eternal resting places, all of the Kellogg's and Hiram's first wife, Victoria, are all at Anaheim Cemetery. But the majority of the Kellogg's are in the community mausoleum, which isn't open to the public because I think structural integrity, I'm not exactly sure, but you have to schedule time to go in there during the week. So I was like, okay. So I schedule time, I head over there, and I'm talking with the museum or the cemetery manager at the time, who's just like, yeah, here you go. Like, it's another day at the job for him. But as we walk up to the doors of the mausoleum, there's beautiful outer doors, and then there's these hand-carved wooden inner doors. And the hand-carved wooden inner doors have in the middle, they're like beautiful shafts of wheat, which symbolize Victorian symbol for a life well lived and a pure life.
Mm-hmm.
But all around them are these hand-carved Yorkshire roses. And I have a Yorkshire rose tattooed on the back of my leg as a memorial piece to my dad. And I was like, yeah, okay, got it. Like, I'm in the right direction. So I was like, all right. So I go into the mausoleum, seeing where they're all, interred and come out. And the groundskeeper, Andrew, approaches me and he's like, oh, what are you doing here? Because the park is small and he knows everyone in the park. And I explained to him, I'm a historian and I do these tours and I'm trying to learn more of the family. And he says, yeah, I've worked here for about 5 years, but I worked at El Toro before. And I said, oh, yeah, my husband has family buried there. And he goes, but I don't live in El Toro and I don't live in Anaheim. I live in Tustin. I go, where do you live in Tustin? He's like, I live in Old Town Tustin. I'm like, I also live in Old Town Tustin. Where in Old Town Tustin do you live? And it turns out he's literally my across the street neighbor.
Unbelievable.
So I was like, cool. So then I was like, and he's like, do you want to see the original internment logs for the cemetery? Yes, I do. Yes. So he brings these out and looking at these, and I'm in historian like heaven. I'm like, this is amazing. So then so I leave. And I had been trying to, and before that, because that day I actually saw it, but before that, I'd been trying to find Helen's obituary.
Okay.
And it wasn't coming up. I'm trying every trick. And being in the house one night, a young man, like a teenage guy, goes, what is the satanic china? And I go, what are you talking about, satanic china?
What?
And what it was is that we have a tea set in the house that is Order of the Eastern Star, which is an upside down star with like fatal around it. It seems much darker than it really is, but it's not that dark. And I explained to him like, oh, that's Order of the Eastern Star. And so then I thought to myself, I wonder if Helen, because Hiram being a Mason, Helen was part of Order of the Eastern Star. So then that night I go and I search just slightly different, and like her picture of her grave shows up with the Order of the Eastern Star emblem on it. So it's like whenever I'm trying to like find something about the house or the folks, things just keep leading me to all these places. And now, adding onto that synchronicity, I just took over our downtown Santa Ana tour as well, which is an outside walking tour. And one of the buildings that we walk by is the rebuilt Masonic Lodge, or the newly built in 1931 Masonic Lodge of what was Hiram's lodge. So it just keeps coming together in all of these ways. And I'm also now the paranormal coordinator for the museum, which is like the best job I wrote for myself. Because I was like, well, we're gonna have people come investigate. I want to make sure we're vetting people and having like good folks that align with the values of the museum and are not, destroying our beautiful museum.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I'm also just not into ghost hunting, which is like come at me ghosts. Like that's just not my thing.
Right.
And so as we've been investigating, I investigate with the incredible crew out of Golden State Paranormal. They're fantastic. And as we're investigating one night, it seems that it's quite possible that we found out that Hiram is in the house.
Oh.
And we got some evidence that Hiram might be in the house because of me. Ooh. And that I remind him of the first wife.
Ooh. Snap.
That was the good one. The first one was the good one.
Yeah, she's
the tour. Wow.
So it's
Mystical
so it's like
connections reeling you in.
I love that so much. Oh my god.
Yes.
And I've had we had a piece of evidence, but then I also had a piece of evidence tied to that. But then I had a sensitive on the tour, I don't know, a few months after that investigation, and out of nowhere he's like, do you believe in reincarnation? So why? He goes, I get the sense that you're the reincarnated spirit of the first wife. And I was like, Okay, this is my life right now.
Yes.
So that's how much I can like, not my house, but like Helen and I work it out. So I take good care of her house, I guess. I don't know.
We
I was
should
gonna say, I feel like Helen would be very jealous of you if that were the case.
Helen and I had some issues in the beginning.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Because we didn't always tell, for listeners who've not been on the tour,
Right.
We tell a pretty rough story about Helen on the tour. And when I first started the tour, we had not incorporated cute stories about Helen.
Oh, right.
And Helen, it I don't just like this whole reincarnation again. Like, I'm just telling you what I've been told. But I look like I could belong to the family of the first wife.
Yeah.
Like dark hair, strong eyebrows, like it's very wavy hair, like it's a whole thing.
I wonder if maybe Craig can find a picture.
Oh yeah, maybe a Victoria. It might, maybe.
What's her? What would be the best search term for her?
Like maybe Victoria Schultz.
Okay, Craig.
Hiram Kellogg. I'm trying to think if I can. Like it's so. And if not, I'll like send you all one you can put on the Instagram. Because I'll be back in the house later this week. But it's been wild. And so Helen at first, I think, like really was like, why is she here?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was almost that kind of vibe.
Right.
But then once we started changing that narrative and bringing in some things about her as like some kind stories about her, it totally changed the game.
She's like, look, you can be here, but
yeah, because I think, that's the thing. You heard me talk about that, but it's one of the things that I really think about as a tour guide is like, what is it like to tell a story, like the worst story that someone ever did for a paying audience?
I know.
Hey, everyone, let me parade your shame. So I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Just guide some people through your house and talk the worst smack about you.
Right.
And when you say like you guys had problems, like was it a feeling? Did you feel it like, or were there spooky things happening? Like
there was definitely a feeling, and at the time, I mean, the house is still very active, but it's active differently. Okay. At that time, it was much more. It wasn't like malicious active, but it was definitely active. Like, you want to be in here? Okay, I'm gonna show you some things. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, interesting. And so again, being there for two and a half years now, it's like watching how the activity in the house has changed. I feel like we've made some peace. So
that's
cool. I'll take that. I'll take that. Because I don't want to investigate in a malicious place. Like I'm too much of a feeler to be in heaviness and that all the time. So,
and I think that's what a lot of us said coming away from the tour was like, that house just feels good.
Yeah, it doesn't feel dark
and antiques and some dolls with real human hair is kind of creepy.
But that was weird.
The energy of the house felt good to us.
Yeah.
Right? That's the thing. Like someone the other day said to one of my staff was like, it feels really sad in here. And I was like, it does? Like, and we were both kind of like, not to be dismissive of anyone's feelings, but like, is that you?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, are you sure you're just not really sad today?
Because I will tell you, the only time folks have I've had 3 people walk off a tour.
Oh.
And as you all know, like, it's not like I'm, being over sensationalized or anything like that. And all 3 of them already had kind of a vibe that like they had a lot going on, which again, like, no shame in that, but I was like, I don't think it's the house. Right. I just think maybe you're coming up against that, like it's being exacerbated by whatever's going on for you. So I think the house feels great.
Yeah,
I've always had that kind of view of. Oh, I think Craig.
There's the Kellogg. Yes.
Picture of the house. Isn't it beautiful?
Oh, it is so gorgeous.
So gorgeous.
I'm a sucker for anything Victorian.
Right? It's so beautiful.
I always thought that way, or considered, when people experience a haunting. I got to tell you, Darcy, I've always wanted to experience a haunting and never have.
I know, poor Paul.
And part of that makes me believe like a big um, uh, aspect, a big part of how you experience a haunt or how you experience energy is what you're bringing to it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of ghosts don't necessarily want to be seen, but if you're bringing into it a soul or a spirit that's going to draw, it's just like human relationships.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of your relationship depends on what you're bringing to the table. I don't know. I've always just kind of had that opinion.
Yeah, and there are definitely folks that I think going an attitude going into anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a bad attitude about something, it's probably not going to be a great experience for you.
Right.
And with the house, like the folks that have had challenges in the house have also at times like shared some other stories during that time.
Mm.
And my first and foremost, like, I want to make sure they're okay. Like, are you all right? Like, I don't want anything bad happening to you as you're on the grounds or leaving. Like, I want you to be taken care of. But I also think that there is just, I think there's also, this sounds judgy, and I don't want to sound judgy, but I feel like there are some folks that like aren't always in the healthiest space. And this is not me making a judgment on the folks that were on my tour. I'm not talking about them, but I think there are folks that use any of the paranormal. It could be other things too. I'm sure we see it in the entertainment industry too, like that use those things as like bypass for actually just being healthy about things. Like, like maybe therapy. I don't know. And so I think sometimes it's like, you come in with these expectations that you're going to have this life-changing thing, but you don't have the life-changing thing because that's not supposed to be the life-changing thing for you.
Right.
Other things are supposed to be the life-changing thing.
Oh.
So that is Helen in her wedding dress. So that is Hiram's second wife that's showing on the screen right now.
And she's the one we consider to be the mother of the house. And we say hello to her when we enter.
Hi,
and
Helen.
Thank you when we leave.
Yes, we do.
I'm saying hi to her picture just in case.
Yeah. And so then I think if you go one over in that, like that Flickr stream has a lot of stuff, but you'll see Hiram in his wedding attire as well. Victoria's not always quite as easy to find because it's not about her story, right?
Yeah,
here's Hiram again, looking like $1 million, right? Looking so dapper. That mustache gets better and better.
It really does.
It's just his personality.
I'm a big
it's just
fan.
all right there.
When we were on the tour and we saw that mustache, I like turned to Mike and I was like, "Sorry, Mike."
You're like, "Sorry about it."
Sorry, but
yeah. And I don't do quite as much now, but earlier in the tours, I would like definitely be a little more flirtier towards Hiram.
Love it.
I think that might have also, I was like, look at this man. Hello.
That is
Hiram.
one dapper gentleman.
He was dapper. He's very handsome. And even Son's mustache, like he still pulled off like, because, we've all seen the people that shave and you're like, oh, don't, you should keep that. You should keep that forever and ever. So that's a fun game that just happened. All my lights just
I was gonna say, yeah, your light all changed. Oh, it's
what
back.
Just happened?
You're talking about how handsome he is. Helen's
right?
For you. She followed you home.
She's following you. I have a light
pop under the desk real quick to see. That's a fun game. Okay.
Sure.
Sometimes you talk so much about someone else's husband, they'll turn the lights off on you. That's great. Cool, Helen.
Sorry, Helen.
So best thing and worst thing about being a ghost tour host?
Best thing is getting to share about these incredible stories with people. Like, and do it in a really entertaining way that also connects history with the ghost stories. Cause like as a historian, like I love that. So I think that is the best thing about it. The worst thing.
I'd like that you have to think about it.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, this
part of the job.
I think the thing I get the frustrated the most with, and it's like it's such a little thing, but I don't like when folks have a lot of side chatter because then they're distracting from other folks. But that's also like, I would be bummed about that if I was a tour participant and someone else was like not letting me hear that.
As a teacher of tiny humans, that resonates
Yes.
in my soul. I'm
Yes,
like,
as a
please
teacher
stop.
of not so tiny humans, that also resonates where I just, and I need to careful not to put on like my teacher voice.
Yes.
Where I need to not be like, ladies and gentlemen, are we okay? Yep. Right?
Just
So
today when I was in that callback, they went and everybody's like it was so wonderful. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
I'm in school.
So I think
For
that's
those
like
listening to the podcast, Amanda's original sound is not on. So she
No,
was
it
clapping. She was
totally
doing the
is.
quiet clapper
Oh,
thing.
why is it? I turned it on.
So
Now
this
it's on
okay,
again.
this says that this is Sybil. This is not Sybil. This might be this
It
is
says
maybe
grandmother at the bottom.
Yeah, I think this might be Hiram's mother, maybe.
Oh.
Because like that's not Sybil. That ain't Sybil. But this is also part of the here's my I will tell you, not in my job, but my least favorite part is when, and our museum is, we have a new conservator. She's getting a lot of things organized, and sometimes just history gets like messed up for sure. But I get frustrated when people have bad history and then they don't fix it. Like that's not right. Change the narrative. So
because Helen's gonna let you know.
Helen's gonna let you know. But even in that, like, I continue to discover more stuff about them. That it's like we had, one story about how they got married, and then we learned more about that. Like, it's ever evolving.
Yeah.
And when you're diving in, oh, really? So okay, so this is Henry Kellogg and Helen Parker Willard of the other Kellogg family.
Oh. Is that the cereal Kellogg?
I think we're inventing a new improv game where we're having a conversation about something and then a picture comes up and we have to
figure out how it's connected.
Say who it is and justify.
Yeah, who that?
Justify.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yes.
That would be amazing.
We'll have to try that. Incorporate some improv into Magical Mystery.
Yes.
Yeah, so now I'm trying to look up. So no, that's not. So John Harvey Kellogg, I believe, is the cereal guy. I don't know which that maybe, I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
I totally get what you're saying about like sacrificing the actual facts and the history for a better story. There's a lot of that goes on in the Titanic.
I was going to say, Paul, do you run into that with the Titanic?
I do. And it's like, you guys, we got to preserve what really happened over the the fantastical storytelling.
Oh, totally. And like, I have a friend who's working on some stuff with the Queen Mary. Okay. And they were like, how much is, how do you separate? I'm like, it can be really challenging, right? Because again, if enough people are like putting it forward and depending on what position they hold. And to me, I'm like, I will change the narrative. If it's not correct, like, I don't want to keep perpetuating that because like, we wouldn't want anyone to do that to us.
Right.
Like, oh, Paul's actually that. And you'd be like, that's not who I am. And it's like, but it's a better story. Like, that's not, we shouldn't say that about those people that have gone on before us. It should not be with living people. Like, just don't.
Because Paul is actually a major Giants fan, like flat out, so much Giants. And he just has to put on the Dodgers facade because he lives in LA.
And this is where Paul just leaves the cast.
I mean, it makes a better story.
So completely ignoring what you just said, I learned a new term and I forgot it already, but if I talk about it, maybe you'll know what I'm talking about. When I was getting my story together for this episode, it's when enough people believe in something and talk about it that it comes into existence. Like people think they see it. Like people think maybe Bigfoot is this kind of a thing, or the woman in white on the Queen Mary.
Is it an egregore or a tulpa?
Tulpa, yes, that was it. Ooh. Yeah, you're an expert. Of course you knew. But yeah, maybe it's that sort of thing where the story has been told enough times and enough people have relayed it that just some sort of energy makes it occur.
Right. And again, like if we believe that like residual hauntings, there they are.
Oh,
There
we
There's
did
they
verse
are.
it.
5. Yes.
So that is Victoria Schultz.
Thank you, Serona Farron, for the picture.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Serona. That is Victoria and that is Hiram and that is their wedding photo. And I just absolutely, and so this is where like the magic of podcasting, but also people seeing us is like, if you look at Victoria, she's very dark features, very high cheekbones. I have both, but also if my hair is pulled to the side and my hair was up and like we get into similar family traits for sure. These eyebrows are real strong. And yeah. And you know, Helen, while she was like redheaded, all their children were like very blonde.
Yes.
Very blonde. It was a very different looking set of children that came after Victoria. But Victoria also was known as like the love of Hiram's life. And you know, it sounds very romantical to be like, I could be the reincarnate. Like, I hear that. But also, like, the idea of what makes me so sad about that is like Hiram has crossed over, Victoria's crossed over. And like the idea that he hasn't been able to truly cross over to go find her. What?
I wonder if it's because Helen's here. You know, maybe he won't leave until she does.
Well, one, I don't think Helen's ever leaving, to be honest. I think Helen's like, I'm here forever.
I mean,
but also I sometimes wonder, and again, this is all conjecture, right? Because we don't have these
know how
answers, but
this works.
I sometimes wonder because Hiram died from complications from a surgery.
Right.
So he went completely expecting to come back. Like he didn't go have surgery expecting to die. So sometimes I wonder if he doesn't fully understand that he's not with us. So I don't know. Right? Because like that, you know, that's something you hear in ghost stories a lot of like people not realizing that they're gone or
like
that they can suddenly fully go.
And Jennifer Love Hewitt when you need her.
Right. And I am not here to try and cross anyone over, send anyone into the light. Like that's not my job. And it's really presumptive to think that I know how to do that.
Right.
Like that's assuming spirituality. That's assuming that like there's so many things in that. And you know, I think Helen's heaven is that house.
Yeah.
So if that's your heaven, like great.
Yeah.
Stay in that
Stay
and I'll
as
just
long
tell
as you
better
want.
stories about you.
I used to think, you know, when I die, I'm gonna haunt. You know, when I was in college, I was like, I'm gonna haunt the theater. I'm gonna be the theater ghost in college because I love being here. But maybe it's that kind of a thing. But speaking of stories, anything that you have experienced that has blown your mind or stuck with you, or that I don't know, made an impact to the point where you like to tell that story?
Do you want to hear Kellogg or do you want to hear outside of Kellogg?
Whatever you would
Whichever.
like. Yeah. You're like, I was hoping you would make the choice.
Or both.
Yeah.
Or both.
Absolutely. Okay, tell as much as you want.
Here, we'll do both then. So let me tell a non-Kellogg one that just happened earlier this year when I went to Tombstone Paracon. And one of the things that there's like two parts to it. So with that Paracon, one, I had friends working that Paracon. So it was like, I'm going to the Paracon, but I'm also going to see my friends there as well, which was great.
I'm assuming Paracon is paranormal
convention. Yes.
In Tombstone, Arizona?
Yeah, in Tombstone, Arizona.
How appropriate.
So I got to participate in 2 investigations during my time there. The first being in a mine. And let me tell you, a mine, if you've ever done, I don't know if any of you have ever done like a float tank where you're totally sensory deprived. It is so dark, so still. That's the only thing I can compare this to. There was like 20 of us in this mine. And when those lights went out, it really took me a moment to like settle myself because it was so dark and so still in there. Like it was kind of wild. So there was like an upper bench and a lower bench. And the investigators, Aaron Sagers and Shane Pittman, who are friends of mine, were up towards the upper bench with some folks doing some EVPs, electronic voice phenomena experiments. And I was sitting on the lower bench with some other people kind of facing away. And as we're sitting there, I start feeling like somebody is standing in front of me. And I'm like, okay, I know like, even though we're in the dark, I know where everybody is. There's people to my right, people to my left. And the only thing that's in front of me, and it's like a good few feet in front of me, is like a pile of rocks in the mine.
Okay.
Nobody's standing in front of me. So I just keep getting the sense. And so they're going through the experiments, and I feel this person not only in front of me, but like they're angry.
Ooh.
Like we're not supposed to be there. And it was more an anger of like, you're getting in the way of what I'm supposed to do here. Like I'm here to work and you're getting in this way. So I'm feeling that. And, Aaron kind of checks in. Is anyone sensing anything, feeling anything, getting anything? And so I share this out like to the group. And Aaron chimes in over to the mine manager and says, hey, do you want to tell that story real quick? And so he tells the story of taking people just down for tours in the mine, and that two different groups from two different, like one was from Florida, one was from Germany, like months apart, came on the tour and saw these two men, like they were working in the mine. One of them had a blue kerchief with a silver ring, and the other one had like a tan vest that had some like damage to it, like he had been injured. And they saw these two people and separate things. Like a little kid saw him, like not a little kid, but like a 12-year-old was like really like sketched out. And they were like, what's wrong? And she's like, those men in the mine, like they're in the mine. And so he tells this story, and I'm like, okay. And he goes, and that happened like right in front of where you're sitting. And I was like,
there you go.
Cool. All right. And so then as I'm sitting there and we've told this out, the feeling of anger gets worse and worse. And I'm just like, because it's like, oh, okay, I told you we're working. Like, it was almost like I told you we were working. And then you're all still here. So I check in again with Aaron. I said, Aaron, like, he's mad now. And so the group started sharing out, oh, we're really appreciative of you, all of this stuff. And like the group in different ways was like talking to this miner. And then he just was gone. So that was pretty wild. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Ghost
Gotta
miner.
tell people you appreciate them, folks. That's
Yeah,
the moral
tell
of
me
the
you
story.
and
not people.
So then the next night I got a chance to investigate at Undertaker Espresso, which is they're a coffee shop, but they're also the original location of the Undertaker in Tombstone. And we were in the back and people were doing Estes method, which if folks don't know, that means when you're running a spirit box into headphones and the person listening to the headphones are noise canceling headphones and they're blindfolded. And the first person that went under, we weren't getting much. The second person went under, and as they went under, I started getting like all of this pressure in my chest. Ooh. Which my first thought is like, am I having a heart attack?
That's always my first thought too, right?
I'm always, and it's just like, stop MDing yourself. I'm just like, what's going on? Or am I having a panic attack? I'm like, no, feeling this pressure. So then he starts, the gentleman under, I don't know this gentleman that's in the Estes, starts talking about basically this miner being trapped in a cave-in and his arm being pinned and his chest being pinned under all this stuff. And this younger girl next to me goes, she goes, yeah, I'm getting a lot of heaviness in my chest. And I said, yeah, so am I. So, but I was just like, I'm gonna let this be. I'm gonna see how this is. But he's sharing all these things about a miner getting pinned under. And it was just like little pops coming from the Estes. So then they switch out who's in the Estes method. That goes away. I mean, totally my chest, it's like, fine. I'm like, okay. Then the next person goes under and like they haven't even started and my whole head starts just all this pressure. I'm like, okay, what's this about? And then the person under Estes is talking about being, they killed me, they shot me in the head. Wow. So those things are weird.
Yeah.
It'll make you reconsider some stuff.
Yeah.
For sure.
Imprinted right on you.
Yeah.
Imprinted right on me. So that's outside of the Kellogg. Okay. I would say most recent, like I have stuff happen all the time. But most recently, we were back at the Kellogg, Golden State, myself, and then we had Bridget Marquardt came and investigated with us, which was super cool. And we were in the dining room, and I was working the XLS camera, which is like the little stick figure camera that you see.
Those are so fun. XLR? No.
Yes, XLR. Thank you. So many.
There's a lot of
acronyms in like, yes, so is. I'm working that and all of a sudden just my stomach starts hurting.
Oh no.
And I'm like, what's not like, like I'm having to just like, oh, I'm hurting. Martin looks up and he goes, I think it's time for you to go in the office. And I go, why, you think Hiram's here? And he's like, yeah, his ulcers.
Oh no.
And we had not been getting like any activity in the office up until that point. And then I went inside and like the activity was all these responses through the EVPs and flashlights and stuff going on. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I don't sit here and say like, oh, I'm a medium. I don't, but things happen and I just trust like if my body's doing things, I'm like, I think something's happening. And it's hard because like, that's not evidence you can go like, here, let me play this back.
Yeah.
Let me play back how I feel. But there are definitely things that will trip you out. Oh, and on that same investigation, I saw my first shadow figure.
Nice.
And I leapt into Martin's arms. I was like, what the? And I was like, and he goes, you saw that too? And I go, yep, saw that.
Wow.
And that was very odd to me because we don't have that kind of stuff in the house normally.
Was there a negative feeling? Did you feel any heaviness when you saw the figure, or is it just something visual?
The energy in the house definitely shifted after that.
Because I'm kind of wondering if it's like somebody that you know, or if it's like something entirely different than.
Yeah, that night of investigation went from very usual, like a lot of the stuff that we're kind of like, that sounds so weird, like used to experiencing, to, oh, this is very different. This doesn't feel the same as the house normally does. And it was a black mass that was translucent, like we could see through it, that moved along the floor, like.
Interesting.
And it wasn't a mouse, it wasn't a creature, like I know what those things look like, but it was my least favorite thing.
Was it humanoid?
My least favorite. No, I don't know.
So it was like, I'm wondering, it's like ghost
it was
dog?
amorphous shape. It was roundish.
Okay.
And I joke at the end of the tour because sometimes I talk about that people have seen shadow figures, and I say they're my least favorite paranormal entity, and that I hadn't seen one. Too late. Yeah. We have now. So yeah, those are some stories that are just, I can't explain those, but they definitely hang with you and stay with you for sure.
And I told Darcy just a second after our tour, I said, because nothing really seemed weird to me, and I was like, man, it's very light, like nothing was happening. And then, but the weird thing is, well, one, like, I don't know if you can talk about that story or not, but you're telling us about Rose.
Yeah.
And I just like, I felt like it still like gnaws at me because there's things. I asked Emily, I was like, go send me a picture, please. Because like looking at her face, I was like, yeah, but I feel like she has Helen's eyes, like the shape of her eye, right? So the whole thing. And, but so I kept like thinking about the kids and Rose. And then finally, when we were all breaking out, I went into the architecture room and I just like looked out the window. And I was just kind of there. And it was the weirdest thing because I heard kids laughing. And I was like, wait, like at first I was like, whose kid is on this tour? And I was like, wait, no, there are no kids here. And then I heard it again and they just kind of went, and like they're laughing, like they're running around, and then just it was gone. And I was like, well, that was weird. It was like a movie. Yeah, it was definitely there.
People hear kids' laughter all the time.
Oh, really?
Okay. And so like, I guess not all the time, but a lot. It's something I hear people are like, what was that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, what did you hear? And they're like, oh, like kids' laughter, like giggling. And I'm like,
yeah,
that happens.
Like they're just playing. I just heard kids playing. And I was like, oh.
And the thing with like, we, as I do mention on the tour, like the child spirits in the house aren't the Kellogg children.
Yeah.
They didn't die as kids.
Right.
And Martin from Golden State has a working theory that they came from the Mag.
Oh.
That they're the deceased Mag children. So we'll see when we finally get to investigate in there if that is. But again, it's like that house got moved there in the 80s.
Right.
And it was, the land of indigenous people beforehand. And it was all these other things, but it's like we don't know who has been there, who's around, who's connected. Like,
yeah,
there's so many things that it could be. And you keep deep diving and like, can we get names and can we get ages and all of these kinds of things? And so far on that end, nothing has turned up.
Interesting.
But we keep looking for it and we keep seeing, and we when you keep getting kind of the same type of activity over and over again and the same kinds of responses, it's hard to ignore that. Like, oh, here we are again with this.
Yep.
Well, you're responding to us in that.
Yes. And I was wondering if it's because I had been thinking about Rose, so like my mind was on the kids, like maybe it was like, oh, like you like kids, we're gonna you're gonna hear us. Who knows? But yeah, it's so strange. It's really interesting that you say that happens often. So
yeah,
I don't feel alone.
Yeah, you're not alone in that.
Some energies that love the house.
Yeah.
We have a kid's book named Leo. My wife bought it for me because it's about a little ghost boy named Leo. And
I have the Leo book. It's good.
My wife Jamie got it for me because I made a movie about ghost hunters and my character's name was Leo, and then she found this book and his name was Leo, so she got it for me. But he finds that he's not welcome in the house that he's haunting, and so he goes out and goes exploring, and maybe that's what those kids did. They went exploring and they found the Kellogg and now they're there.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're the two spirits that are like left someplace and then you go someplace where there are other spirits.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be alone. Like, oh, look at this. I'm alone now.
Yeah.
I love that Leo book. It's such a sweet book. It's such a sweet book.
Now I need it. I need to read it.
Well, you have been so generous with your time. I hope you will join us again.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I will come back anytime, y'all.
Yeah.
Oh, we got that on tape.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, honestly, anytime that you want to come out, I mean, we'll probably just ask you at some point if we don't hear from you. But
reach on out.
Yeah.
Reach on out.
And obviously, if you would like to stay before the really quick, obviously, if you'd like to stay for the rest of the year, you're totally welcome, but we can.
Can I? Are you cool with that?
Of course.
Yeah, because I'm just gonna like read I read my script, so and like it's interactive. So if you ever want to be like, wait, or
I love it.
Feel
Let's
free.
Do it.
I have one more question before we turn the page here, though.
Yeah.
And I got to throw it back to last night. We had a variety show and we did some improv, and I heard for the first time, why can ghosts walk through walls but they don't fall through the floor?
That was my improv.
You know what? That's a really good question.
Right?
Because
are they just constantly levitating?
Well, and I also, it's like it takes the energy to come through the wall, right? So are they like, do they only have is this where we find out that ghosts only have so much energy because they are constantly having to do energy, like use energy to make sure they don't fall through the floor?
Maybe.
Or maybe the floor has energy that walls do not.
Right?
We didn't know this when we built floors. They build like a special ghost proof layer.
This is going to take us down a whole nother rabbit hole.
I said there was one more question, but we have one in the live chat from Diana Nicole. She asks, on your tours, have you ever had problems with non-believers? Have they ever brought up any drama?
I have not had any trouble with non-believer. I do joke now on the tour where I'm like, how many of you are here for the ghost? How many of you got brought here by somebody who is here for the ghost?
That would be David.
And so, but I think probably one of the most interesting nights that I had was, and this happened last year. Like our museum is a very welcoming, inclusive space. And, we want to acknowledge folks and their experiences and their identities and who they are. And I had two gentlemen. Well, a gentleman had bought the last ticket before coming on the tour and then asked if his friend could like pay in cash. And I was like, sure, I have room. And so they looked like they looked like they were guys in their probably, I think, early 20s, dressed in all black. And they kind of look like maybe nerdy goth boys to me. Like, as a huge nerd myself, that's not me calling anyone a nerd. That's me being like, game recognizes game.
Yes.
And so they were on the tour and very nice. And then they approached me afterwards to witness to me. And they began sharing their experiences of turning from atheist and agnostic and very depressed into having revelations with Jesus and how their lives have turned around, and that I have to be careful that ghosts could be demons, and like they were sharing in a very genuine way. They were very genuine and very earnest. And one of my staff like had to step out of the room, and I was really concerned. And they were just more like, I didn't want to deal with that. And I said, that's okay. And it's something that really stuck with me because I really try to see it as like, because when you tell people you're in a haunted stuff, they will tell you their experiences all the time. Like, which is great. It's my favorite. That's one of my favorite things about doing this. People are like, I got a story. And I'm like, let's hear it. But they were sharing these very earnest experiences, and I tried to really just have the heart, like anybody, like, you know what? This is if someone else shared a different kind of ghost experience with me. They're just sharing this experience with me. And I don't need to believe it or not believe it. Their experience can be enough for them. And so I think that was like the oddest one for sure, where I was like, thank you for paying money to come witness to me. I appreciate that. But like, at the same time, it was an interesting like audience to try and approach. But yeah, non-believers, I think as Paul and Amanda can attest to, like, I try very hard to make things very entertaining. And so even if you're not there for the ghost stories, you can get the history, or you can come along for the ride.
Right.
And, I think I tell it in a light enough way that people are like, this is fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm definitely not dogmatic about it, because Lord knows I don't have all the answers. The people that tell you in the paranormal they have the answers, run away from them.
Right.
Run away from them, because they don't.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, I love it. And I love history, like, and knowing the history of it. It's fascinating. So I love your approach.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so cool. I personally would love to go on an investigation.
So we're in the talks about that for sure.
Yes.
About maybe doing some group public investigations. We have an event with in January we're doing an event with Adam Berry from Kindred Spirits. He's coming to do a limited investigation in January, which is a pricier ticket for sure.
I think I saw that and I was like, whoo.
But I'll tell you that investigating with Adam is pretty incredible. And he's very interactive. It's not one of those things where like he's letting you investigate, but it's not like he's like, I'm the celeb and I've like like Adam's a great person.
Yeah.
And I love him dearly. And so, but we're also looking at maybe doing some stuff maybe with Golden State. We're in the early stages of that because we honestly just had
go ahead.
We just had some some new folks join our team, and so we're trying to get everyone settled before we throw everyone in. Also, I have to convince I'm like, who's going to be the new staff to learn the tours and be in investigations with me? So
that's what I was just gonna say. I was like, are there any scholarships available? No, and that's like even so, what I think would be cool because like I've never done investigation. I would love to just like watch. Like that's another thing that I think would be cool. Like I don't need to do the investigating. I'm like, can I just watch this? Like, so just another option for you.
It's good to know. It's good to know. I appreciate it.
I will be quiet. That's about.
Like I'm just here.
I just want to see it.
Wallflower. It's like watching Ghost Hunters, but you're there.
That's what I mean. Like I just want to see it because like I find all these shows and like I watched an investigation for my story and it was so cool and I was like, whoa, like this is, and I was like, is it real? I wish I could see it, you know, like because it was so good and I was like, oh. But
it is different, like suddenly, because in investigations and depending on what people want, right? Because people rent it out and they want the lights on and sometimes they want them off and sometimes it's half and half. But like investigating in the dark is a little different. All of a sudden you're like, oh, what's that noise? Who's that? Where's it? Know? And you have to settle your mind a little bit. We did a walkthrough of the Mag Farmhouse today for the upcoming Adam event because there's certain places in the mag we can't go. And that is Martin and I were talking about like, we're gonna have to sit in there for a while to just get to know the feeling of it, the feeling of the sounds and how outside echoes and things like that. But it can be real different in spaces where you're just like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I'm gonna go in the other room or I need a break.
I also want to see the Mag House. Like I really like when we walked in, I was like, Kellogg's beautiful, but look at that place.
What is that? It's pretty barren inside. I don't know. I took a few I took a few photos. I don't know if folks will be able to see this but like the mag is when I talk about that we don't have a lot of walls.
Wow.
We don't have a lot of walls.
That's when you can walk through the walls and not fall through the floor.
Right, exactly. And then if need a chair, we got them, but probably not good for sitting on.
Are there plans to open it eventually or no?
There, part of our fundraising efforts are for to refurbish the mag.
Okay.
But the mag is a 5,600 square foot farmhouse.
Yeah, it's big. Holy
moly, is it a lot of time and work and making sure that things are, what they should be. So that is part of the dream. It's part of the dream. Because the museum's a nonprofit museum. Like we're not a corporate space.
Yeah.
And so it's not, if you know any wealthy benefactors,
right,
that would like to have the,
can you mag, have a wing in the mag house?
A wing in the mag or so, that would be absolutely amazing. Yeah. But it will take a lot. It takes a lot. And so right now, our conservator Stephanie is going through to, look at different historical artifacts in there and move some other things out. And we have interns coming in and, so it all of that historical preservation takes so much work.
Yeah.
And to do it right. And then to redo a house. Like I know we live in a time of like, flip this house. And I was like, you can't just flip the mag. No. It's a 12, it's a 5,600 square foot space with like so many rooms.
Right.
So 2 different staircases and like all. So it's there's definitely places where we're like, I'm not gonna step there in the dark. We'll be good.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of really exciting stuff happening in the future there at the what is the
Heritage Museum of Orange County.
Yes. Check it out. Check out the website. Book a tour.
Yes. Yes. Haunted OC, the website for our tours, and I run them all year long.
Yeah.
And then the museum is Heritage Museum of Orange County as well. And coming up next weekend is for folks checking us out live. We are doing on Sunday a Dia de los Muertos celebration.
Oh,
Nice.
And the museum will have like performers and vendors. But the other really cool thing is that you can submit photos of your loved ones for them to print out and put up on the ofrendas. And they're doing one not only for our humans that have gone on, but also our lovely fur babies that have also.
I want to send in all the pictures.
Yeah. So you can send in photos.
We'll put all the links to it in the show notes. And she mentioned, obviously, the audio version will come out after this. But this video is out for everybody. If you want to share it, make sure you like, subscribe, of course. And let's fill up the Heritage Museum, Orange County.
Yes.
And
there are now links in the live chat. So if you're watching, you can go back and look in the live chat.
Producer Craig's on it.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, thank you so much,
yes,
Darcy, for joining our family.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome. Yay!
I know.
And
amazing.
Volunteering yourself for every future episode. That was
right. This is exciting.
We can't wait to have you back.
We'll be like, guess what? Our next one is ghosts.
Every episode is now ghosts.
Yes. I mean, if you like anything else, aliens, cryptids, missing persons.
Do you look at this? Do you see the nerdery behind me?
I love it.
There is horror movie stuff. Mark Twain is back there. Like,
oh yeah, we talked about the Mark Twain house. Mm-hmm,
yeah, like I.
Okay.
If you're like, do you have a story about this? Probably.
Perfect.
Probably.
Perfect.
It's so nerdy back here. Magic. It's like, just ask. I'll probably And if I'm not the guy, I know a guy. So
yes.
Perfect.
But you could be the guy.
Yeah. We got to do an episode, Serona says in the chat, on Victorian morning practices.
So fascinating.
Oh, I think we know. I do know a lot about that.
A little bit.
I do know a lot about that. So.
The hair is what sticks with me.
Oh yeah.
Somebody in my class, one of my classes, when she 4th grade, she said, "Why do people wear black when somebody dies?" And I went, "Oh well." Hold on. So I did not get into it, but I was like, "Yeah, it's a long story." And then, but she did ask a question that I did not, and she said, "Well, who was the first one to do that? Where did it start?" I don't know.
I can't even answer that question for you.
I know. I was like, oh. I was like, I don't know. But sometimes they dress like that for years. And she's like, oh.
Right. And then in other cultures, it's not black.
Yeah.
Right. And so, definitely a Western thing.
Yeah.
I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know, it reflects your soul. Good question. Yeah. I love that a 4th grader's like,
hey, yeah. I teach music.
That's even better.
I know.
That's even better. That's like,
hey.
Hello. And then you're like, what music did you get into at home?
I know, right?
Are you getting a little emo?
Should paint
a little
paint it black
music? Yeah. Why do they wear black? Or like, what shows have you been watching? Like, yeah. You find out this 4th grader's really into 6 Feet Under. Yeah. And you're like, oh.
Okay.
Speaking of music.
Yes.
Perfect segue.
What a great segue.
We love to mix live music with our live storytelling and conversation here on the Magical Mystery Hour. And I think I'm going to jump into a little something.
All right. We will turn off our cameras for a sec. That Paul can be full screen. And we'll be right back. If it lets me. I tried. There we go.
You didn't have to just go away so quick, but we had a conversation a couple episodes ago about how you can take like a regular song and make it ghostly, or if you just change the perspective, maybe a love song could be about a haunting. And that's kind of where I went with this one. Let's try it. Hello, it's me. I was wondering if after all these years you'd like to meet, to go over everything. They say that time's supposed to heal you, but I ain't done much healing. Hello? Can you hear me? I'm in California dreaming about who we used to be when we were younger and free. I've forgotten how it felt before the world fell at our feet. There's such a difference between us and a million miles. Hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done. But when I call, you never seem to be home. So hello from the outside. At least I can't say that I tried to tell you I'm sorry for breaking your heart. But it don't matter, clearly doesn't tear you apart anymore. Hello? How are you? It's so typical of me to talk about myself. I'm sorry. I hope that you're well. Did you ever make it out of that town where nothing ever happened? It's no secret that the both of us are running out of time. So hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done. But when I call, you never seem to be home. Hello from the outside. At least I can't say that I tried to tell you I'm sorry for breaking your heart. But it don't matter, it doesn't tear you apart anymore. Hello from the other side. I must have called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done. But when I call, you never seem to be home anymore.
Yes.
It's like Leo. Hello.
Yeah.
Where's everybody?
Yes. I loved it.
Now I'm going to think about that song in a whole new light.
Yeah.
All right.
And that just helped me. We do like some bonus Patreon episodes, and I read stories. And since it's spooky season, I read The Telltale Heart. And usually, what I do is I have David on these Patreon shows, and he improvises something on piano. But he had been on a trip and just got back, and so I said, "I'll just sing a song. It's fine." And so I was like, but I was just couldn't think of a song. And then I was like, oh, you know what? Like, I'm just going to go with the connection, Telltale Heart, and Jar of Hearts, right? And so I said, let's think about it. And so we talked about it, and I was saying, yeah, like Jar of Hearts. And then, I was thinking about somebody who collects a Jar of Hearts and is like, what do I, you don't take care of it, and you do all this. And like, I sang the song, and then we all went, oh. Like, if you start thinking about that song as in the perspective of the person, who has just been killed and is like living on, their voice is haunting this person now. You're collecting these Jar of Hearts, and your heart is cold. What are you doing, and all stuff. And I was like, oh, so I love these flips now that we're getting from this show.
Yeah,
it's completely changing what we think.
Ghost perspective.
Yeah, I love it.
Speaking of ghost perspectives,
Ooh.
Amanda, it is the spooky season, and you did say, let's do more ghosts.
More ghosts.
I know we just did ghosts, but let's do more. So
more ghosts.
You must have had some stories you wanted to tell, and we can't wait to hear them.
Yes, I am excited. I decided to go with a classic haunted house story, or haunted people, I guess. And it's just like all of these, they're all controversial. Is it real? Is it fake? Especially the famous ones, because there's always reasons that people might have faked these things. You never know. But it's an interesting story. So I decided to actually talk about the Sallie house in Atchison, Kansas.
I don't know if I know the Sallie house.
Oh, you don't know the Sallie house. You know Darcy, the Sallie house? Okay. You're like, I have opinions.
Love it. I'm excited. Let's do this.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's a very interesting story. So I'm excited to tell you. So, like I said, Darcy, feel free to chime in anytime. I have like a script I wrote out ahead of time, but like, feel free.
I usually pick like the most dramatic and most poignant moments to cut in and say something stupid.
And I go,
so
like a lot of times I hit those moments and I go, okay.
Where's Paul?
Yeah. He's like, I got nothing.
Would it help if just at a really dramatic point, I just pulled the trigger on this dog gun and it just barked? Like, how would that really change the tone?
Well, I mean, we are talking about changing the narrative and the tones.
Right?
How about a pony?
Oh.
Perfect.
I told you I have so many things.
All right, we are ready to ruin your story.
All right. Yes. I mean, it's Halloween. What are you supposed to do? All right. Well, okay, let's get started talking about the Sallie house. Here we go. So, typically my experience with ghosts, and that's obviously if they really are ghosts, have been pretty friendly, right? Sometimes comforting, like seeing a lost loved one in a dream, or having an experience that just makes you think, well, maybe there really is something beyond this life. I don't know. Well, that's nothing short of astounding. So once, after my grandma died, I was watching The Shining, right? It was late. I couldn't sleep. I had been trying to sleep forever, whatever. And I just went downstairs. I turned on the TV, and don't blame me because it literally was just on. I turned it on and I was like, ooh, Shining. Okay. And during a particularly creepy scene, I just caught a whiff of this, just the most beautiful perfume you've ever smelled in your life. My first thought was like, oh, potpourri. I was like, wait a minute. But I was transfixed. It literally just kind of blew by me, right? It went from right to left. I was just laying down on the couch, and it just went like this across my face, and then was gone. And just for a little while, I lost track of time and place. I just took it in, And then really, I realized all of a sudden, there's no potpourri here. There's nobody here to wear perfume because it smells like perfume. And so I just started looking around downstairs all over the place. I got obsessed. It's like, where is this? It's got to be something somewhere. I smelled all the candles. I looked for, anything that might be out. I couldn't find it. And it was nowhere to be found. Years later, I heard a saying that good smells like that are people who love you just stopping in for a visit and making their presence known. And I will always remember that night and that smell for the rest of my life. But, occasionally things aren't so rosy, right?
But hang on before you move forward.
Yeah.
It didn't remind you of anyone from your past? It was just
No, it was just like I said, it was just the most beautiful perfume we've ever smelled. It was weird. It's possible because my grandma did like perfume. So she had them, so it's possible. But it wasn't anything that I distinctly recognized. When I was in middle school, my parents went on vacation in Mexico, but never fear, there were lots of people in the house watching over all of us who were there. And but that day, my brother was upstairs watching TV in his room, and I was getting ready to go over to my neighbor's house for the afternoon. Like, we'd just go and hang out. And seeing that I was ready to go, it was just me and my brother at the house at the time. And he said that he was going to go meet some of his friends. And I said, cool, good. I'll lock up the house when I leave. And I was going to turn on the TV and record a show that I wanted to watch later, but I couldn't find the remote. And then I remembered, my brother's remote was broken. And what he would do is he would take the one from downstairs up to his room. And I got annoyed. So I had to go upstairs, get the remote, bring it back down, find my, right? It's just wasting my time. Fine, but I'll do it. With the remote in hand, I went to the hallway and I got to the top of stairs. And that's when it happened. It felt like somebody hit me behind the knees. I had this moment at the top of the stairs that just everything went, what? And then next thing I knew, I was falling on my knees, like kneeling down the stairs. That's terrible because my parents have wooden stairs in their house. So I felt like every stair on my knee. And I was so confused. I finally got to the bottom and I literally just laid there. I was like, what just happened? I also realized I wasn't able to walk because my knees were so sore. And literally I heard my brother's truck driving away. I was like, okay, this is great. My parents also have a split level house. So my options were to take the long way around. So you go down one hallway, through the kitchen and then to the phone in another room. There's a short way, but involves going down a level and then back up to the next room. I was like, great. So the whole way I'm trying to figure out how to get there. And I just couldn't stop thinking, what happened? Something hit me on the back of the knees. And then later, or actually now, I really think was it some kind of a malevolent spirit? Or I guess it's possible I just, for some reason, lost consciousness for just a second. I don't know. I can't really explain it, obviously, but that's what it felt like. I was hit in the back of the knees. I really wish I could know, but two things I do know. One, that house is definitely haunted. And two, my knees have never been the same.
Oh.
That's a really rough way to hurt your knees.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, I don't.
No, it wasn't good. My knees, they literally were like, kneecap, whoop.
Yeah, I got bad knees. Why? Well, one time a ghost
just pushed me down the stairs.
Remember that time a ghost pushed me down the stairs?
Yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Weird.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. At least only your knees, and you didn't go head first.
Right. No, I am grateful.
Ooh.
Because yes, I at the bottom, again, I was like, oh my God, that was awful. I hurt. I can't walk. But otherwise, I'm okay. I'm not dying. I didn't hit my head. I'm not bleeding. Thank you.
Luckily, this was before you were with David, so he couldn't get blamed for it.
No. Oh, man. Well, that brings me to today's episode. We are going to discuss one of the most infamous haunted locations in America. That is the Sallie house in Atchison, Kansas. Known for creepy poltergeist activity, physical attacks, and numerous unexplained phenomena, this place is just a beacon for investigators and skeptics, which we'll talk about too. Is the house haunted, possessed by the spirit of a little girl named Sallie, or is it something more sinister? Let's find out. So, first we're going to talk about the history of the house. The Sallie house was built in the mid-19th century, and it was a residence for family initially, but it does have a dark reputation from this legend. And I will say this is a legend. There's a lot of speculation about whether or not this happened. There's no proof, but I want to tell you the story anyways. It goes. A mother knocked on the door of the Atchison town physician, Dr. Charles Finney. The mother was holding her limp daughter who was suffering in her arms. The little girl was named Sallie. She was clearly in pain, and the doctor brought the pair into the house. The bottom floor of the house served as his medical office, and he put the girl onto the examination table. Dr. Finney diagnosed Sallie with appendicitis and decided that she needed surgery immediately. No time to go anywhere else. We're going to do it right here in the house. However, they say that Dr. Finney miscalculated the child's need for anesthesia and that she woke up mid-surgery. The shock and the trauma was too much for her, and the 6-year-old Sallie tragically passed away on Finney's table. Ooh. They say that her spirit is the one that haunts the property.
So it's the physician's property?
Yes.
Not the family's property?
No, yeah, because they brought her to the doctor. So the town doctor lived upstairs, and his office was downstairs. So if you had an emergency in the middle of the night, you just knocked on the door.
Yeah, it's like Orange County, where people do business in their house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. The How Waffle House that I do on downtown Santa Ana, Willella How Waffle, treated patients out of her house. Whoa. And she had a speaking tube that people could come up to in the middle of the night to wake her up. So not uncommon in a small town to be like, hey.
Now I have teledoc.
Oh, yeah.
We're all working from home after COVID.
Anyways.
Right?
So this is quite the story. However, definitely take it with a grain of salt because public records don't conclusively confirm this event, necessarily Sallie's existence, and this has led to a lot of speculation that it could just be more folklore than anything else. However, residents of the house also reported no paranormal activity until the couple, Tony and Deborah Pickman, moved in the 1990s. It was then that the hauntings began in earnest. And there's a little caveat there we'll talk about a little later. The hauntings began shortly after the birth of their first child. So they moved in, had a few months in the house getting ready, and then had their baby. At first, the paranormal incidents at the Sallie house were pretty subtle. Their dog would sometimes growl at empty spaces. The lights would flicker, sometimes turn on by themselves. The neighbors said that the nursery lights would be on all night and waking up the baby, even though they knew they turned them off. So things like that you think, oh, that's weird, but maybe it's just the house, right? One night, the Pickmans had some family over to visit their new little bundle of joy. And other than a few strange things, they're really enjoying their time as a family of 3. As everyone was just cooing over the baby, Tony Pickman went upstairs to grab something from the nursery. When he approached the room, he saw that all of the baby's stuffed animals, which had been nicely organized by Deborah on the shelves, were organized in a circle in the middle of the room. He immediately called for his brother, who was a known prankster, and accused him of a practical joke. When his brother got upstairs, he replied in earnest, "No, I swear I did not do this. I did not touch these animals. I am not involved in this at all." They argued, and then they noticed movement in the room. And then they said that the stuffed animals were just like flying across the room. It was total chaos, and they ran downstairs terrified and told people what they saw. And after that incident, things just kept escalating and getting worse. What started as small oddities escalated into terrifying encounters.
And this has been the trailer for Toy Story 5.
Yes. Are you listening, Pixar?
Andy's Revenge.
Oh.
We already know Pixar ripped off the other story you told about the battling tribes and with Frozen 2. What was that on the East Coast?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I'm trying. I'll have to think about what that one was.
Roanoke.
Yeah,
Roanoke.
Roanoke.
Tribes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, what? Indigenous people have had their stories stolen?
What?
No, that doesn't happen.
Capitalists took from
What?
indigenous people? What? All right, so flying
Yes.
plushies.
That's how it starts.
Flying plushies.
So lots of things happened after that. Firstly, there were mysterious fires at the house. And that was really unnerving for the Pickmans as they lived there. They said that candles that had never been lit were found with the wax melted. But that's not the weirdest part. The wax could seem melted upwards.
No,
held upside
no,
down.
thank you.
I know.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm. Nope.
And not only that, but several items seemingly caught fire on their own. Okay. So there's this show, which I'm going to reference a lot. It's called Sightings. Sightings is kind of like Unsolved Mysteries. You know, it's in the same vein and same time period, but it's all, you know, paranormal, mysterious stuff. And the footage that they had, Deborah showed a rose that seemed burned from the inside out. So it was all burned on the inside, and then the outside was totally fine. And these incidents seem to fuel theories that the entity or entities in the house had the power to manipulate the environment, right? Which leads you to wonder, poltergeist or worse. However, of course, skeptics say, one, there could be natural causes for this, right? Two, fabricated stories. We don't know. It is worth noting that there were no official reports from the fire department, so they didn't, you know, call and say this happened, and they didn't come do investigations, no inspections. So
it's just stories that family members told each other?
well,
That's...
right. Like I said, there is video, but
unexpected fires in your house, please call someone.
I agree. Call an electrician at the very least.
An electrician at the very least. Absolutely. Because like unexpected fires, that's how people end up on Dateline. So just don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or that's how people pick each other up in an AI produced screenwriting challenge.
I forgot about that.
What show were we talking about?
I don't
Darcy,
remember.
I was talking about how scary AI is, and I went into ChatGPT and I asked it to write me the first scene of a romantic comedy where a firefighter falls in love with a pyromaniac. And like they set up this coffee shop fun scene, like the barista's all ruffled and her name tag's on crooked, and the fireman's all chiseled with a perfect jaw. And I was like, oh my God, AI is coming for our jobs. And then all of a sudden we find out that she can just make things catch fire just by thinking about it. And I was like, oh, okay.
Never mind, not yet.
AI is not going to replace me today.
We're good. Today, not today.
I was going to say not yet.
Spontaneous combustion.
Here's the thing. Keep feeding AI just terrible things.
I know.
And then they will never replace us. Never replace us.
Well, I mean, that was just a Hallmark movie. So
yeah, I mean, it really...
Terrible things. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm ready to save a cookie factory. Or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, or the Christmas. I mean, it's always the most random business, the most random business in the smallest of towns. And again, like this is not my observation first, but like the big time corporate Wall Street stockbroker fiance is always just like, great time, see you later. Like just always like. You didn't mean that much anyway. It's just out. Always out. Like, all right. Yeah. And yet I'll totally get sucked into him. Like when you just want saccharine, just like I just want to eat junk food and it's a movie. Hallmark.
It's Christmas.
Do
It's
it.
Christmas
Yeah,
and it's romance,
Christmas.
and that's why
I
we get
love
sucked in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we digest.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Back to my-
spontaneous
back to my
combustion.
story.
Sorry.
Yes. Okay.
Random fires in your house.
Yeah.
Continue.
To add to this confusion, this is one of those little, asides that went, well, no reported paranormal activity before, but later, a former resident came forward. They had found out about the fires in the house, and she said that she actually lived in the house when she was a kid, and there actually were several unexplained fires in the house when she lived there too. So she came back to the home, and sightings came out too, and she actually pointed out some of the areas that the fires had started. So these weren't just like candles or roses. This was like an actual spot fire in the house. And what they noted is that there were no outlets, there were no cords, there was nothing behind the walls, nothing to say this definitely was the reason for the fire.
Had the fire department been called for any of those?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know because they didn't go into that, but
right.
I would assume if there were, they would have added that. But that I don't know. So yeah, it's a really unsettling thing to think fires would just start. And I have heard this on some other haunting stories too, when they escalate random fires happening or like trying to trap you in places. So who knows?
No, thank you.
No.
That seems like an awful way to go.
No, I know.
An awful way to go.
At least they could put them out.
It's true. But again, you're asking for things when you don't call anybody.
Agree. Agree.
Call someone.
Even in the 90s, you're going to call the police, man. People be like, it's a different time. No.
First of all, don't say that. It's different. No.
We take care of ourselves.
Here in Kansas, we don't need fire departments. So the reason I was like, yes, I've heard of the Sallie house is the author, and who's also a friend of mine, Richard Estep, has a book called The Great American Ghost Trip. And in the book, Richard and one of his teams goes and investigates the Sallie house. So you can read about the Sallie house in that. But Richard also was a former he's a paramedic in his day job now, but he's a former fireman. And he's like, the one book nobody ever basically, I'm gonna butcher the name of the book, but basically the one book that no one ever thinks about in regards to paranormal investigation is like the building safety code book.
Seriously.
Sincerely, like you walk into some places and you're like, oh no, this is how we fall through the floor. See, It all comes full circle.
It does.
Goes through the floor.
Yes.
Because we were in part of the mag today. I was like on the second floor, and I'm like, nope, not stepping there. I am too much of a big bold supermodel to. That doesn't feel right.
Oh man!
All of my stuff just fell off my desk and flew across the room. Yeah, you're a hoarder.
Yeah,
it fell over.
It just fell.
Just fell. Just fell. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, years ago, this might be a TMI story, I don't know, but I was dating a gentleman, and in the middle of the night, I woke up to something on the nightstand moving, and I was like, wake up. And he's like, I don't want to tell you what it is. And I was like, it's a freaking ghost.
Yeah.
No, it was a mouse.
Oh no.
And I was like, I'll take mouse. But my first thought was not mouse. No. Ghost.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ghost. Sometimes I have a mouse.
I oscillate between like ghost and murderer. So.
Oh.
I mean.
100%. Yeah. I don't want to know any of the Dateline correspondence in a professional way.
Yes. Just the other day, Lily was barking in the middle of the night at the top of the stairs. I was like, David, go look.
David, go.
Just go. I can't do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, look out for Amanda Benjamin's new album, The Murder on the Nightstand.
Yes. My new hot single.
Just like the most over the top sexualized pop song about a murder on the nightstand.
Could be a Doors song.
It totally could be a Doors song. Oh my gosh.
I love it. Oh no. It has to happen. All right, we're going to move on to the physical attacks on Tony Pickman.
We haven't derailed you past the point of no return?
No,
okay?
not yet. I'm okay.
All right.
So Tony would frequently feel burning sensations all over his body. And like clockwork, those burning sensations would develop into scratches, often in sets of 3, as if he had been clawed by some unknown force. These attacks were actually witnessed by others. The show Sightings recorded the phenomenon in one take. So during the episodes, viewers witnessed Tony flinch in pain. He's like, and then he lifts up his shirt and the guy's like, come here to the cameraman. And he comes over and you can just see these pink lines that raise and turn into scratches like right before your eyes. So I don't know if you could fake that in the 90s because I don't.
Is that called stigmata? Is that
right?
Stigmata?
Well, I mean, stigmata specifically.
Stigmata is when you're bleeding out of your hands.
My bad.
But
like the Lord.
Scratch mata.
Yeah. Oh, I totally forgot. I do have like pictures. Hold on, really quick. So Darcy, you have to look at the stream. But this is the Google Street View of the Sallie house, just so you can see a little bit of it. It's like other than the creepy music playing, I'm like, oh, this
looks really claustrophobic.
Right? It is. Yeah, it's not huge. And this
no feng shui in there.
This is a picture of the Pickmans. So that's Deborah and Tony. And so now I'm going to show you pictures of his scratches, so you can see what would happen to him. So this was pretty common, these sets of 3 scratches that would just appear sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes just randomly during the day. Yikes.
That may or may not have inspired a scene of my film, The Haunted Man, on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know.
Like you do.
Yeah, those scratches, that is a lot of scratches.
A lot. And this was like a common occurrence. So, again, no thank you.
You know.
Would not recommend.
0 out of 10. Would not recommend.
I'm leaving a Yelp review for your scratch skills.
For your haunting. Thank you. The next thing that happened, it's pretty not good too. Tony claims that he was actually pinned down by the spirit. So Tony says that what happened was he was on the bed when suddenly he could see the spirit of a woman and looked at him and said, I'm going to. And then suddenly he was pinned down. He couldn't move. He just seemed completely paralyzed. And she was whispering in his ear. And like, he was just freaked out. Like, still to this day, he doesn't love to talk about it. It still haunts him. He still hears it. Like, very creepy.
Called a really vivid dream.
Yeah.
Or the start of a different kind of movie.
That is, sleep paralysis is a thing.
Sleep paralysis is a thing, for sure.
So, I mean, it does sound very sleep paralysis-y. If you don't know, in sleep paralysis, you wake up, but you're paralyzed. So you're sleeping, you wake up, and people actually commonly see a person that looks basically like a demon. And
that demon was played by Frank Romeo in Paul Carganilla's film, The Haunted Man.
Yes. So Dari, you have sleep paralysis? Oh, I have to hear about this. So it is possible that that's what was going on. But who knows? Then he started getting intrusive thoughts. Okay. As the time passed, they got worse and worse. He felt like he was having thoughts that weren't his own at all. He attributed it to the entity in the house, and he recalled moments of uncontrollable anger and violent urges, including thoughts of harming Deborah. Worried by these thoughts that, again, seemed entirely separate from his own, he decided to visit a psychiatrist. He thought maybe he had schizophrenia or some kind of other mental disorder that he didn't know about. So they did a lot of tests on him and basically told him there was nothing really wrong with him. He was fine. I'm also going to talk about this really quick, but I'm not going to talk about it because I am very sensitive to animal cruelty. So I'm not going to go into details on this. If you're really interested, you can do like a really fast Google search and find out what happened because it is disturbing. The short story is that Tony woke up one morning and said he was compelled to grab a large chef's knife, and then he blacked out. He came to outside of his home. He was somewhere else completely. And when he returned home, he found a deceased animal in the house. Again, if you want details, go look him up. It's not for me.
Do we know if he had any drug or alcohol issues?
They did not talk about that in anything that I've read. I wish if I Googled it. I mean, because it does sound, blacking out suspicious.
I've blacked out and found dead things in my house before.
It's very common.
I'm a moderate drinker.
I mean, who hasn't?
That was a joke. I've never.
No.
That
just putting it out there. That was a little bit of improv comedy. This psychological toll added to Tony's fear and really desperation to leave. But the torment continued and continued until they finally decided to leave the Sallie house. And though they actually got out of the house, the memories stayed with Tony forever. I'm going to talk a little bit about Deborah's experiences in the house too. Tony obviously suffered physically. Really what Deborah endured was the psychological weight of Tony's hauntings. She witnessed Tony's emotional decline as this entity seemed to focus its energy on him. Earlier in the haunting, Deborah was asked why the family didn't just leave the house, right? This is really bad. Why not just leave? And she would respond and say that she just wanted to know the reason that it was happening. She wanted to see it through. She later kind of walked back and said at the time that she said that she didn't realize just how bad Tony was suffering. And it was a lot easier for her to have determination to stay because she wasn't the one enduring the horrible parts of this haunting. And that's not to say that she's immune.
It's not that bad.
I know.
You're fine.
You're fine,
You're
Tony.
fine.
It's just a couple scratches.
You're fine. And this is when Tony realized that when he had a cold, he way overreacted. And now this.
Or it was just every time they'd bring it up, she'd be like, have another glass of wine, dear. You're imagining it.
I know they're real experiences for them, but
yes. Oh man. So as far as Deborah, after the night that the Pickmans discovered the toys from the nursery, placed in the circle, moved around, Deborah was actually afraid for a while that the entity might harm their baby. So they called a psychic, and they had a friend, I think they said out in California. And what the psychic said is that she believed that it was a young child who just wanted to be part of their family and who actually wanted to protect and maybe play with the baby. At that point, Deborah felt better about the spirit, and that's part of the reason that she decided she could push through. It's just a little kid. It's fine.
I don't want that kid playing with my baby.
Right? No, thank you. Also would not recommend. We'll also talk a little bit about the sightings. They brought in a psychic named Peter James. And during the visit, Peter James walked around the house and right away said, the psychic in California brought up the name Sallie. Okay. James is the house. He did a walkthrough, and right away he said that he sensed multiple entities. James believed that the haunting wasn't inherently evil, but it was tied to some kind of trauma and unresolved emotions. And during a walkthrough of the house, Peter says that he encountered an entity on the stairs. And he said it was a young girl and that he was getting the name Sallie. So this was a confirmation for the Pickmans from the previous psychic that they'd consulted, that the spirit was a young child and that she was looking to join the family. when he reached...
I think Peter James is the same guy who did the TV specials for the Queen Mary when he found the little girl.
Oh, he might have been, because he was like a TV psychic guy, you know, like...
I think he's known for finding little girls places, if I'm not mistaken. Not like that.
Darcy's face. If you're listening to podcasts, that face is amazing. So when he reached the top of the stairs, Peter James turned to Peter turned to an open door down the hallway and said that there was some kind of force that was actually trying to keep him out. Like he would walk towards the door and just feel a little resistance. He described it as like something just lightly pushing him back. And in the video, Pickman, you can see Tony Pickman starting to get very uncomfortable. And he's like, "Are you sure this is okay?" And apparently Peter James wasn't really aware of Tony's history in the house. And he's like, "No, don't be afraid. It's okay. You're the one in charge here. They're spirits. They're not going to hurt you." Well, didn't you know what would happen soon? And this is the point in the middle of the investigation when the physical attacks occurred. This is the point when they caught it on camera. And everyone was just completely shocked watching these scratches appear on his stomach. And they said they started on his forehead a little bit later too. So that was just, wow. Again, Peter James was like, "Oh, okay." They finished the walk through the house, and he decided to walk to a nearby cemetery and said that he could feel the spirit leading him out there. So he decided that Sallie's grave must be there. After searching, he claimed that he actually found Sallie's burial site. They moved closer to the grave, and then they finally examined the tombstone that he was sure was the right one. And everyone was disappointed because the tombstone was worn down and completely illegible. So he said that he could feel Sallie there and that Sallie couldn't breathe. And he concluded that she probably died of some kind of issues with her lungs.
Real convenient that her tombstone was illegible.
I know.
And I just Googled it. So Peter James was the one who named Jackie on the Queen Mary.
Oh, so he named Sallie and Jackie.
Sallie and Jackie, the little girls haunting the place.
Oh, interesting. So he said, like I said, he said that he could feel Sallie couldn't breathe. She must have had some kind of issues with her lung. And they couldn't quite find the records of the girl who had been like a girl in the cemetery. They couldn't find the girl, from the original legend, right? That like the girl who died in the house. But they did find a girl named Sallie, spelled the same, Sallie, who died in the town of the early 1900s of pneumonia. Little tiny, maybe. I don't know how common Sallie is. I should look that up.
How common was death by pneumonia, though?
Oh, very common in the early 1900s.
So common.
And
I think also spellings, right? We see a lot of folks, and depending on who is named by who, I was just having this, again, weird things that they come together.
I know.
But people
I love it.
smelled, if you were illiterate, you would spell phonetically.
Uh-huh.
And so it could have been a phonetic spelling. It also could have been just the way it was spelled. It's not like a Tiffany with a PHI. But,
Ashley with the EIGH.
Yes.
So, he found that, and just it made a lot of people really interested in this house, especially after sightings. It just like kind of blew up in popularity. I did forget to mention that the Pickmans originally were trying to keep their identities hidden. They did pixelize their face, but eventually, it came out. We do have another previous resident who came forward after hearing all of this. And there was a family who lived in the house before the Pickmans. So I think they were the resident before, because they lived there in the early 90s. And I think the Pickmans moved in like 93. It was Bobby and Colleen Humbard and their young daughter, Heather. Heather started talking about her new friend. Knowing that kids often created imaginary friends, her parents weren't very worried. They asked her what her name was, and she said it was Sallie. She even drew pictures of her, which depicted a young child, probably like 5 to 6 years old, in an old-fashioned like white dress. And at the time, the parents just assumed that Sallie was, harmless, thought nothing of it until they heard about the story of the Sallie house. Then they made the connection between the supernatural and her imaginary friend, and they ended up reporting it again to sightings and to the Pickmans so they could tell their part of the story, which is interesting if true. Obviously, could be a little different, but very interesting. Now, there are some theories about this haunting. Okay. First of all, the question is it a child spirit or some kind of malevolent spirit, right? Because it starts to get very malicious, right? And seems to be some very, thoughtful. I don't want to say thoughtful. I can't think of the right word right now, right? But there's a lot of thought and intention behind things, not necessarily playful. Many psychics, including obviously Peter James and several others that were brought in, believe that the spirit of the child, possibly Sallie, was seeking attention or help, right? She was sick. She wanted, to play with friends, family. She wanted something. Tony, however, was like, no, this is a dark entity. I know what I saw. And these are violent attacks. Okay. So firstly, I'll ask you guys, having heard about, the events and attacks, do you think it was child, poltergeist, demon, all three different entities in the house?
Yeah, well, it's definitely not residual. It's intelligent.
Yeah,
it's not a residual haunting.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be the kind of thing where it's the energy, like it started out as something and then it just kind of evolved over the years based on, the different energies introduced to the house.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know.
I tend to shy away from the D word.
Yeah.
Because, so many people are like, it's a demon. It's a demon. It's a demon. It's a demon. And I'm like, so many demons.
Right. I don't know what would be a better word, since you're historian ghost tour. What's a better word?
I think that there's definitely can be like malicious spirits or energies or things like that. But like, again, demon also assumes a certain like belief system, and
that's what I was thinking. No, like I don't like to tie it to like a religion.
But there, I mean, there can definitely be some energy. Like that's not great.
Yeah,
and then, but it's interesting in the idea of something really malevolent disguising itself as a child as a way to get in.
Yes. And that's what a lot of people think, is that it's not a child at all. It's something disguised. And then once you let it into your life and your mind, it's becomes what it really is. No. So,
in the words of the horse from Ren and Stimpy, no, sir, I don't like it.
So something else happened a little bit later. They started after they moved out, they had trouble getting people in and like staying, right? It becomes like a famous haunted house. So at some point they're cleaning out the basement and they found supposedly a pentagram downstairs and down in the basement. We don't know who, when, why, right? And we don't really know any of that. It just came out years later that there is a pentagram in the basement. Again, no one's sure if it was there while the Pickmans were there because they didn't talk about it. They didn't really film down there. So I can't tell you that. And obviously, in case you don't know, a pentagram is a 5-pointed star, often associated with occult rituals. Could
it be confused with the Asian symbol on the Kellogg house?
The Eastern Star.
Plate?
Oh, that Order of the Eastern Star?
Oh, the Eastern Star. Yeah, sorry.
Could have been.
Maybe.
Could have been.
Yeah. So, some people think that the pentagram might have stirred things up or maybe made it worse if it was there while the Pickmans were there. Could have been something going on with Pickmans or with a previous resident. Who knows? Could have been a future resident. But just an interesting little side note about that. Like also, yes, I forgot to. I was going to mention another obvious thing that could be is that somebody went in and, you know, basically broke in and drew one to try to capitalize on the media attention.
Sure.
So, you know,
100%.
Always take
because that'll definitely lead you down the path of thinking it's a demon.
It's true.
Oh, there's a
Pentagram.
Clearly a demon.
Demon. So.
But if you're looking at it the other direction, it's for, you know, good witchcraft. It's
that's what I'm like.
Perspective.
I'm like,
it's all perspective.
If it's about its orientation, like, how do you know where to stand?
Right. And you just assume, well, it's upside down. Is it upside down?
I don't know.
Maybe it had this side up, like, and then they knew.
I was actually wondering that literally. I was like, is there a little thing you draw? Like, to be like, please stand here. I don't know. So there are some, I'm going to talk about some of the skeptics about what they think.
What?
I know. I have to throw it. There's no way that this could be anything but a real haunting. But, so skeptics oh my God, I can't say the word obviously tonight.
Obviously.
I'll skip it. Skeptics awful. Nope. Someday I'm going to say it right. Skeptics offer alternative explanations for the unsettling events at the Sallie house, suggesting that the Pickmans and others' experiences might not have been supernatural at all. So first of all, Tony Pickman's emotional state and physical stress, along with this growing anxiety that the couple had, could have played a huge role in the manifestations they reported. And we talked about that earlier. When you're going into like a haunted house with certain energies, right? You kind of get what you give. So obviously that could have affected things and their interpretation of what was happening. Researchers often note that high levels of stress, sleep deprivation, emotional factors, they can cause people to experience vivid hallucinations, intrusive thoughts, and mood swings. Does sound very similar. Some theorize that Tony's unexplained scratches, violent thoughts, and outbursts might have actually been psychosomatic rather than ghostly attacks. And then I went, in my head, I was like, wait, how do you get scratches? Psychosomatically, that doesn't sound like a thing to me, but it is. And so I didn't know this. I had to look it up. There are lots of conditions that can explain this, and one is called dermatographia, also known as skin writing, right? So apparently it's a condition where really light physical stimulation and sometimes even just heightened emotional triggers can cause raised welts, redness to appear on your skin. And it can happen within minutes. So it's often associated with abnormal release of histamines in the body. So even without a direct trauma to the area, this can happen. So it's entirely possible that the footage we saw was real and genuine, but it was caused by the stress of the interviews and reliving the trauma that the first scratches that happened, right? So very possible. And as for the ones that happened in the house, like when he would sleep and wake up with scratches, there is also something called parasomnia, which is a sleep condition. And basically somebody who has parasomnia will move around in their sleep and they don't wake up. So it's entirely possible that somehow he was scratching himself and then waking up and finding them without having any idea that that's what happened. And then it's, again, something that can happen with stress and anxiety. So very possible that's what was going on.
He could also be like allergic to his new laundry detergent.
Yes. Entirely possible. Like the same, like those histamines, if he has the like dermatographia and the sheets are just rubbing against your skin throughout the night, it's possible.
I mean, I don't speak ill of people who've had experiences, right? Experiences are enough.
Yeah.
For those people, but at the same time, it's like you do have to rule out everything.
And that's something we've talked about on this show before. I think it's so important because And that's why I put all these things in here. Because so many people, I have these paranormal Facebook groups, and they're like, why do you even have to chime in with that? And it's like, well, if you're not going to explore the reasons that this might be happening, what's the point? Right?
You have to be good investigators, because if you're just assuming that everything people say, like, yep, like, that's not good investigation.
Forget the facts. It's a better story.
I know. That's why I start with the story first. Let me give you some facts.
We talked about that earlier. Like,
yeah.
ditch the facts. Take the drama.
Oh, yeah. And that's, no.
Yes, no, not my thing. Another angle that skeptics, oh my gosh, I can do it. Another angle skeptics explore is the power of suggestion. So from the beginning, Tony and Deborah Pickman consulted psychics, right? Who told them, yes, you're dealing with a spirit. It's possible it's a harmful entity based on what's happening. It could be very powerful because you're getting scratches. And this could have planted the idea that something dark was residing in the house. The psychic readings, media coverage, it all could have amplified everything that was going on to create these unexplained events. This phenomenon is called the priming effect. When people are told a place is haunted, they start to notice and interpret otherwise normal occurrences, like creaky floors, electrical malfunctions, all of that stuff is paranormal. And over time, this can lead to confirmation bias, right? Which we know a lot about confirmation bias now. We talk about it all the time. So it could be that. And then, of course, also, people say that paranormal experiences tend to increase when the observer expects them to, right? All of these things kind of come together, and it is entirely possible that there is an explanation for these hauntings, that the experience really did happen for these people, but there is an explanation for everything. The only thing I don't have an explanation for are those toys.
Sure.
I mean, that's...
At least they weren't dolls with real human hair.
She's a Victorian mourning doll, Paul.
Still creepy.
And I'm just curious, do you guys, like, after hearing, what the stories of what happened and the possible explanations, do you have kind of like a gut feeling so far? Just curious. If you don't, it's fine.
I mean, there's such a range of stuff going on there. I'm just like, I'm sure they experienced.
Absolutely. I think they did.
I'm sure their experiences were real for them. But yeah, you laid out a bunch of different options, and I don't know. I think, there's probably something there. But labeling it is dangerous. And
right.
If you say there's something here that's trying to hurt me, well, that's what you're going to believe.
Exactly.
Regardless, but it's really interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to go. Like, I just want to go. Like, let's go.
I agree. Can we go? I would love it.
Like,
rent it out.
And I think that's one of those things, right? Is like, for example, like the Whaley House in San Diego.
Oh,
right?
I want to go there.
It's the most haunted house. I've never had anything happen in the Whaley. I never get a feeling in the Whaley. I never, it's just like, nope. And I'm not saying that other people's experiences aren't valid. It's just I never have, right? And other spaces I've walked into and I was like, what is happening here? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like I did a recent, and this like makes sense, but I did a recent tour of the local coroner's office for a class I was doing. And not in any space where deceased humans are, but just in this one hallway. It was like, ooh, what? I don't know what that was, So like then I've walked into other places where I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm leaving now, So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. And I know about it, not obviously super deeply, but I think, I want to feel it for myself.
I would love that. I want to go to all the haunted houses.
Right. I mean, haunted locations, just getting to check out different places, and also like not as common haunted places. And, I live in a haunted house, so, whatever.
Yeah.
But
set up the Magical Mystery Hour tour.
Let's go.
Right?
Let's do it.
I'm ready. So there are still a lot of modern investigations and public interest in this house. It's a popular destination for paranormal investigators. Ooh, I love this. Craig's is brilliant. I keep accidentally hitting that. Okay. Try to close it, and it's like, let me pop open a window. Yeah, so Craig's in too. And I did watch some of these, as I mentioned earlier. And it was pretty creepy. A lot of people report feeling watched. They're obviously hearing unexplained noises, footsteps. They see things move. Some just describe a really heavy, oppressive energy lingering in the house. In that video that I watched of their of the investigation, I wish I remembered right now. If I remember, I'll put the link somewhere or talk about whose investigation this was. But actually, the TV, you see it just turn on by itself when they start asking some questions. They're like, it was almost a jump scare. It got me, like, because they were just sitting there talking about Sallie, and then you just see the girl scream. Like, it seemed so genuine. She's like, ah! Like, ran around the corner, and they're like, what? She's like, I heard it, and then like she heard the TB is what it was, and then so they pan, they're like, look, and like you just see the image. Eventually, like, it looks like static, and then just the image comes on, and they're like, oh my god, where are the remotes? Like, they're trying to find it. They're like, no, like, how does it turn on? They did a lot of also, like, they have REM pods around that would go off. The REM pods went off when they weren't even on, and you can hear it. It's like very clearly the REM pod sound, but they weren't on. They're like, they're not even on yet. Why are they going off?
So here, yes. But I'm going to also say that REM pods are notorious, if they're not in a Faraday cage, for picking up, which a Faraday cage blocks out other stuff. If your cell phones aren't on an airplane, if emergency vehicles come by and anything can set them off.
Oh, interesting.
Darcy's skeptical corner.
This
I love it.
Knowledge we never had before you were a part of our cast.
So much.
And this is knowledge other people have shared with me. It's not,
you didn't discover it.
I didn't discover it, but it's important to think about. Like, and so
like I said, I'm always interested in the explanations.
Yeah.
And then they had, what else they have? They had the one of the ones that like pops up the words,
the Ovilus.
But is the Ovilus the one that does the text, or is that the one that does sound? I don't like it speaks. I don't remember.
Ovilus can pop up where I think some of them do talk.
I don't know if we'll say it was an Ovilus. But yeah, they had that, and so they would ask things like the name Sallie actually popped up on the Ovilus, which was weird. They talked about there was a lot of like. They were talking about, do you want us to go in the basement? Like the basement door open and closed, stuff like that.
No, thank you.
It was pretty creepy.
If it's opening and closing on its own, I'm not.
Yeah, no, I'm not going down. I showed like the picture of it. I was like, I have no. That's where the pentagram is. Not going down there.
Yeah.
So there was just a lot. It was a whole lot. So again, if I remember when we do this on the podcast, I'll put a little link to whose it was. It's just maybe it's just I was alone and it was nighttime. I don't know. It's pretty creeped out.
What?
I know,
primed
right?
yourself to be scared?
I did the priming effect.
We all do it to ourselves.
It's true.
It was like, I'm good. Let me turn all the lights on.
Oh yeah. I definitely slept with the hall light on that night. One time we did this show and David was out of town. It might have been the last Halloween show. I think it was. And David was out of town. And so we finished up, went to bed. Sometimes I have this little light that does, stars.
Yeah, I have one of those.
And so in the middle of the night, I left it plugged in and it made a sound. I was so scared. And then not long after that, my dog sits up in bed. Woof, 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 out of the hallway. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this.
Then she unplugged the stars thing and it started making the sound again. No. And it was like, I'm out.
It sits there now unplugged.
Paul's making all these script ideas right now. It's like, and then
on the sequel of The Haunted Man.
Yes. Yeah, that light thing sits over there unplugged. I can't. Because it makes like this really weird, like MIDI music boxy sound when it plays music. You know, like it'll play a little song. I'm like, oh, no, thank you. So yeah, it brings us to the conclusion of what happened in the Sallie house. And whether you're a believer or skeptic, because we looked at both sides, the Sallie house definitely leaves an unforgettable impression. The Pickmans' experiences there are harrowing, and the unexplained phenomena continue to intrigue and terrify those who enter the house. Are the events in the Sallie house the work of a vengeful spirit? Or do they speak to the power of the mind and belief? In the end, maybe the real mystery lies not in what haunts the house, but how it haunts those who hear the story. And I suppose that this will forever remain a magical mystery. End of story.
Amanda Benjamin, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, thank you.
Do we get the blah, 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 blah?
I know. Wah, 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 wah.
Air horns.
I need a Wendy Walker.
Always.
So good at that.
So good at crafting, doing your research and crafting a great story and presenting it in just the best way that Amanda knows how.
I try.
Love it. So good. We're going to take a quick break as producer Craig tells everybody about all the stuff that's coming up next on the Vodacity Network, and we run to the restroom. That's a little behind the scenes. I showed you guys behind the curtain what happens when Craig does this. And then we'll be back with Amanda's song, and I have a little bit of history, well, a lot of history, a little bit of ghosts, and some crazy mystery. Just a little bit of it coming up. I promise it. We won't go till midnight tonight.
You're gonna be on a tight timeline.
So no, mine is just some fun that I'm bringing to the table.
Oh, good. Tonight. I love
fun and history, mostly history.
And if I may, before we head to break, and I am so sorry to do this, but I'm getting the signal from the other room.
Yes, of course.
The house that we have to let other people go to bed, and I'm so sorry to leave with you.
No, I'm so happy
but I
you stayed for what?
I also didn't want to just be like go to break and then I'm just disappeared.
Bye. No, it's
at all.
So much fun.
The Irish goodbye.
Hey, just Irish goodbye, everyone.
Totally segues into my story. The Irish goodbye.
Ooh.
But thank you so much, Darcy, for hanging out and joining the cast. She had no idea what she was doing.
I'm so excited.
I already can't wait for another time that you're on.
We're gonna have some good times. But thank you so much for having me be on tonight, and thank you for letting me hang out. And I'm sorry I can't hang out longer.
It's okay.
No,
but
next time we'll have to we'll have to start a little early. That was my fault.
It's okay. It's spooky season and people's schedules are changing like constantly. And here's the thing, I'm never gonna be like, don't take your call back. Like, of course, take your freaking call back. Of course.
We'll wait.
Totally.
She's like, no, you call them and tell them you already scheduled a podcast recording.
I'm sorry. I have to record a podcast. Yeah, that's not the answer that they want. So I am very grateful to spend time with you all, and I'm grateful for everyone understanding my need to be kind to other people.
We are grateful for you and your experience, sharing your experiences and hanging out with us and shooting the ghost stuff.
Yes,
absolutely.
So much fun. Thank you.
We'll see you very soon. Give it up again for Darcy and Amanda.
Bye.
Please say hello to producer Craig.
Wow. Love these stories. Makes you want to just float around and get into it. So thank you so very, very much, Darcy. What a pleasure to hear your comments and to hear your stories. Amanda, Paul, great show so far. We got still more to go, but first, coming up on the Vodacity Network, let's see, we got to do that and that. We have an episode of Gaming with Dari this Tuesday starting at 8 o'clock, episode 52, where she plays games online and you get to participate in a variety of them. Please join us on the Vodacity Network Tuesdays at 8 p.m. with Gaming with Dari. And then starting at 8:15 on Wednesday is Amanda once again, but this time Amanda on Demand, where she sings your requests live. Go to www.amandaondemand.com, put your request in, and she will post it on the wheel. And especially if it's a theme show, we always look for themes, and I don't know if Amanda has a theme for this coming show yet, but she's always got something up her sleeve, so check it out. And that'll be this Wednesday starting at 8:15 p.m. Then coming up, a very, very special weekend in April of next year, April 12th through the 14th, Long Beach, California, the Titanic Anniversary Weekend 2025 on the historic RMS Queen Mary with host Paul Carganilla, and special guests are going to be throughout the weekend. Paul will be hosting the event, or part of the hosts of the event, featuring Nelson Aspen, Ellen Maurer O'Brien, Judy Prestoninsi, I hope I pronounced her name right, Brad Payne, Kelly Schwarken, Paul Carganilla, of course, and more announcements to come. It is coming soon. It is next year, April 12th through 14th at the Long Beach Queen Mary. If you'd like more tickets or to find out more about that, space is limited. You can register today at titanicweekend.com.
And you can meet the ghost of Jackie.
Ooh, yes. And then finally, as part of our announcements, coming up in February of 2026. So start planning for it. Start preparing for it.
It's right
just around the corner.
Yeah.
Yes. Polly's Picnic Campfire Edition, live music, improv comedy on a boat. And it's a Royal Caribbean cruise on the Quantum of the Seas. Trip to from San Pedro to Cabo San Lucas, 5 nights. And we are going to have our very special guests, Franklin Wall, great country music. And if you haven't heard them, please look them up on Instagram or on YouTube, and hear their songs also on Spotify and other music services. Great group, great time to get together with friends and enjoy Polly's Picnic Campfire Edition on a boat. Live music and improv comedy. That's coming February 2026. You can contact Anna Gianavola. She is our cruise director for the Vaudacity Network. And that is keeping you up to date with things happening here on the Vaudacity Network. And thank you so very much. And of course, happy Hollow Scream.
Craig's the real MVP, Dad.
I know. Also, like the headless look right now.
Yeah,
I was like,
Yeah, well, there's the background.
Yeah.
It came up.
impressive.
Yeah, I
like
thought, why not? Wearing my Vaudacity shirt.
Yeah.
It makes me look like floating because it matches my background.
I love it.
I told him, dude, you're blending into your background. And he's like, I'm a ghost tonight.
That's the
and I was
point.
like, oh, duh, I'm a dummy.
Or at least I'm trying to wear Harry Potter's cape of invisibility.
Yes. I got that reference. I'm not a huge Harry Potter guy, but I've seen the first one. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Craig Jackman, ladies and gentlemen.
Woo!
Thank you, sir. He really keeps us afloat.
He does.
Wah, wah,
Yeah.
wah.
Nice.
And thank you to all the 15 people still tuning
Woo.
in here late at night on a Sunday night. I know your week starts tomorrow. We'll get to it. I promise mine is a light fare this evening. But before we get into, we have a duet too after
We
that.
do,
of course,
yes.
and I'm excited to hear that. But first, I'm excited to hear what tune Amanda brought to the show today, this evening.
This evening. I actually decided to do one of my originals tonight.
Nice.
I think I played it. I forget if I played it on the cover or where I played it somewhere. But viewers here may or may not have heard it or the story. And what this is, the reason it ties in is somebody that I had been in a chorus. David and I have both been in chorus with her before. Love her. Her name is Julia. And we had met Julia's partner, Heather, just I think a couple times. Very, very intelligent, thoughtful person, working on just some incredible scientific work, just so interesting person to chat with. And I was really glad I got to meet her. But Julia posted online that Heather had taken her own life. And this was really sad. And then, I was thinking about it and thinking about her. And then Julia posted another post, or, a set of pictures. And all of a sudden, I was just like, boom, like, I have to write this song down. It was like it just flowed into me and it came out. And then I was like, okay, so the poem came within a few minutes. I had written the whole thing. And I spent a little bit of time, but the melody came pretty easy too. Everything about it just flowed out. And so it feels like she's there, like she's with me when I did it. And like it was just kind of fed to me. And it also, speaks from the survivor side, but it made me think about ghosts and hauntings and how a lot of times it's people who weren't ready, like we're ready, but weren't ready to go. And how sometimes that can attribute to a haunting, but also how even if there's no physical ghost, you leave behind somebody who is haunted by you, whether or not you're a ghost. So that's what I was thinking about with this song.
Love this song. Yeah, you did it on a recent Cove Pod episode.
That's what it was.
We were talking about having a positive attitude when you sit down to create and how that helps. But we were all sharing, well, I say we were, but all my wonderful friends were sharing originals and love this tune. Can't wait to hear it. And I'm sorry, what did you end up calling
it? You know what? I still haven't given it the official title yet. So it goes back and forth. So it could be called Heather because that's her name. And sometimes I just call it Grief, and sometimes I call it Survivor. So take your pick, because that's the one part that has not solidified. Maybe I should see if Heather will tell me. But because it's all of those things.
Amanda Benjamin original.
All right. Well, here we go. Let me get this on. All right. My guitar is here. You just can't see it. Our photographs are on the table, smiling faces holding hands, a warm summer glow that shone around us, dancing barefoot to the band. I can see your eyes, a sea of green. Taste the sweetness of lingering. packing up your stuff. Sometimes love just ain't enough. And that's Heather's song.
An Amanda Benjamin original.
Yes.
You choose the title.
Yeah, choose your own title, adventure.
Love it.
Yeah. Ugh, I got a little lost in there. Sometimes I get like too like lost in my own thoughts in that song occasionally. And
How can you not?
I know. Yeah. No, it's so good. Like I said, it's interesting, especially, and that's why I always, it's weird when I talk about how much like things I like about my own work. I'm like, that's weird. But at the end, I always like to point out how it changes to I'm never packing up your stuff, because I love you and I know that you're gone, but that love isn't enough to make me move on. So it flips on itself a little bit at the end, which again kind of brings me back to like the being haunted part and staying in the feeling.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Man, it's tough.
Yeah.
Losing people and knowing that we're going to. That's part of life.
Yeah.
Gotta love on each other as much as we can while we're here, and tell each other we love each other as much as we're here, and take every day, make the most of every day we have, right?
Absolutely.
Well, there's a little bit of that in my stories.
Oh.
But
and now I finally get to sit back.
Yes, you can relax, and like I said earlier, I'm gonna lay a lot of history out on you. So
I love history.
It was great that we started with Darcy and how she was saying, on her ghost tours, she loves to mix the history with the ghost stories, because that's a lot of what I'm gonna do here tonight. I'm gonna talk about a specific location that we visited on a recent family vacation to Ireland. It is Dublin's very own Kilmainham Jail.
Oh.
This jail here, spelled in Old Irish GAOL.
Ooh.
So it looks like goal, but it is jail. It's built, it sits atop what's called Gallows Hill, and it opened in 1796. Back then, you see that courtyard, everybody watching on the YouTubes, right outside the front door. That is the main entrance we're looking at in the live feed. There's a courtyard, and right after this jail was built, they started public executions in Dublin. They would hang criminals, right out there in public on the street. They had the gate in front of the jail. People would have to stand back and watch if they wanted to. They would march those sentenced to death out and just hang them in the middle of Dublin. You could just walk over and watch it happen. And that's kind of what it was known for after it opened. Later, in later years, about, I don't know, 90 years later, they decided, well, maybe we'll just hang people inside the doors. So they created what's called drop cells inside the jail, where they would drop hang people inside. So the public didn't necessarily have to see it. Now, the thing about this jail, too, was that they were equal opportunity hangers. They would hang men and they would hang women out in public. I guess it wasn't always a thing where you would hang women, but this jail decided that they wanted to. All the way, let's fast forward now to 1910. So about 120 years after it opened, they decided they didn't want to hang people anymore. And they thought, hey, guess what? We actually have this courtyard where we have all the prisoners break stones. It's called Stonebreaker's Yard.
Oh.
There's no windows in the entire compound looking out at this courtyard. Why don't we just shoot people?
Oh my God.
So, yeah, in 1910, they decided that any future criminals they're going to execute, they'll just take them out and shoot them in the courtyard.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well,
this.
Oh, God.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I have to look up when it ended in the U.S., but like in the UK, they were still hanging people into the 1960s, which is wild. Like,
was it public though?
No, I'm just saying, like, in general, like, I don't know. Actually, to be honest, I don't know. I don't think it was public, but I can't tell you that for sure. But yeah, into like the 1960s, they were still doing that as like punishment for, if you murder, found guilty, like they just hang you. And I'm like,
right,
that is so recent.
Those of us of our age, we just remember lethal injection. Yeah. We don't remember people being hanged. Like that's something in a storybook or something in an old movie.
I'm going to look up when they stopped in the U.S. Let's see, in the U.S. because it's just, like I said, it's crazy to me to think that was so recent. Right. Oh my God. Sorry. This one says January 1996.
Okay. That's very recent.
What?
Wow.
Wow.
We're going to have to do a deep dive on that. But
history is weird.
So that's what Kilmainham Jail was known for, basically, was like executing prisoners. Now, there was a lot of stuff happening in the 19th century in Ireland. Irish history is really interesting, and I really didn't know anything about it until we were preparing for our vacation. So some of the things I talk about might be like common knowledge to anybody who's like well aware of Irish history, but if you don't know a whole lot about it, so the whole country of Ireland, way back to the Vikings, has been basically a battle for land and territory and rule over the centuries and centuries. And if you fast forward to the 19th century, you've got your Irish natives who believe that Irish people should rule Ireland. And you've got neighboring countries who believe specifically Britain, they should rule Ireland because they actually have a government and Ireland doesn't. But you also have Irish natives who believe that Britain should rule Ireland because Irish people are doing a really crappy job on their own. So there's always this civil war going on. And at one point in the mid 19th century, around 1840, 1845, you've probably heard of the potato famine. Ireland, like Irish people lived on potatoes, basically. And we entered into this time period where all the potato crops rotted, went bad, and people started to starve everywhere. And it was horrible. People were dying every day. Like it was just awful. A lot of people who lived in Ireland thought that this was caused by the British just trying to wipe them out. And, that's a conspiracy for another episode. And
that's when a lot of people started leaving Ireland, right? They were immigrating into America.
Yes, that is correct. Good job.
Look at me.
But it was also a time where you could, if you were hard enough up looking for something to eat, you would trade your freedom for food. So people started committing petty crimes so they would be put in jail and they would get 3 meals a day. And so this jail, Kilmainham, the cells were built for single occupants, but at one point in the mid 1800s, these cells that were built for one criminal would have 5 in it. And it got so overcrowded that's when they started like shipping people to Australia. They're just like, we can't hold any more prisoners. What are we going to do with them? But conditions were terrible, as you can imagine. But there was also no segregation in the cells. You could be stuffed in a cell with men, women, murderers, petty thieves, and all types of criminals would just be put together. And the government also realized, hey, I think people are just like stealing a loaf of bread so they can come to prison and eat. So let's cut down the food that we're giving them to dissuade that. And so people started to starve in the jails. And another thing is too, they didn't have beds. Sometimes the cells had a bed of straw, and a lot of times they didn't even, it wasn't like jails or prison these days where you get locked up and we'll provide you with a jumpsuit. Mm-hmm. You got put in a cell wearing whatever you're wearing. There's no shower time. There wasn't anything like that. Like, you were wearing the clothes you were imprisoned in the whole time that you were locked up. And if you can imagine what would happen in those kind of conditions, people were getting sick. Mm-hmm. People were dying. So not only were you getting executed if you went to Kilmainham, you were getting sick and getting fed probably a lot less than you thought you were going to be. Yeah. It was awful. The youngest inmate on record was a 7-year-old boy. No. On record. And if you can imagine, so Noah is going to turn 7 in a few months. Like, some kid just a few years older. Yep. In that jail that we showed you just a little bit ago, if you're watching the live stream. Really, really That's crazy hard, stuff. Man. Horrible conditions. Lots of people died. Many, many people died there. So do you think maybe that building is haunted?
Yeah.
Well,
I can understand it. Yeah.
Little bit. The real historical reason that this place is on the map is because of a big political event that occurred called the Easter Rising. And you could do so much research and dig into this, but I'll give you the total nutshell version. Among the constant political turmoil or troubles of Ireland over the years and years and years, around the early 1900s, 1916, several groups of rebels, Ireland was being ruled by Britain at the time. These Irish rebels decided they were going to launch their own uprising, their own rebellion. These were, if you like the movie Moulin Rouge, some bohemians, artists, poets. We love the land. We've been taught to be, to be Irishmen and fight against the man. They were not strategists by any sense. So they came up with this plan. They were going to get some guns and take over several of the major buildings in Dublin and start their own rebellion. And then all the other true Irishmen around would grab guns and come to their sides and fight alongside them. Yeah. Didn't work out that way, unfortunately.
It's like Les Mis over here.
What's that?
Said it's like Les Mis over here.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And that's also true historical. Well, not all of it, obviously, but that part, historically happened.
It's really interesting. The whole thing started the day after Easter, so they call it Easter Monday that year in 1916. They kicked off this uprising at the General Post Office, which is right in the middle of the town. We got to go visit that too. Still has bullet holes in the front of the building. Mm-hmm. It's wild, but the way it started is pretty funny. The leader of the rebellion stood on the steps and he held out this big paper, this poster that they ended up posting all around town, claiming their rights. It was basically their declaration of independence against Britain. And while he's up there on the steps shouting it and reading it off. People are just like looking at him like he's crazy, and walking by and going in to like send their mail, and they're like, these guys are nuts.
I just needed a stamp.
Yeah, but then they started this uprising right then, and like people who were there doing business got killed. Like it was crazy.
Wow.
But like I said, it was not strategically sound.
No.
And they ended up having to surrender, of course. And 16 of the leaders of this rebellion ended up in Kilmainham jail. And they ended up being executed. The British shot them in the Stonebreakers yard. And this really had an impact. They ended up becoming like true martyrs. Like while they failed and they were killed, they got the job done eventually. And these are the 16 fellas. 15 of the 16 executions took place in May, between May 3rd and 12th of 1916. And then one of them got, he had like a longer trial, and he ended up getting executed later in August. But one of them, it's super sad. He had suffered such bad injuries during the uprising that they wheeled him out into the courtyard in a wheelchair to be shot.
What?
Crazy. But one of the leaders, a fellow by the name of Joseph Mary Plunkett, is one of the key players in the ghost stories that we're going to come back to. But
and it's really quick, like it's looking at those pictures and you think about like those are just real people with lives before this, and then everything changed one day. That
is super crazy too, because like I think like so the uprising happened in 1916. This is 4 years after Titanic sank.
Yeah. Like
it's not like way back in the history books. It's not that long ago.
No.
Wild. Well, I'll get into the hauntings that have been reported on the web, and then I'll show you guys my pictures from our tour. But first is the chapel, and this is actually where we started our tour. They showed a fun little video. You see the screen, it rolls down, and they show a little video about the history and everything we kind of just touched on. And then a fella comes out and talks about it. But so back in the 60s, the jail had been in disrepair for a long time. It stopped being used, obviously, at some point. And they decided they wanted to renovate it and make it into a museum. So while they started the renovations in the 60s, the governor of Dublin actually decided he was going to stay there with his family and live in the jail during the renovations to make sure no funny business goes on overnight, and we'll just keep an eye on this place.
All right.
Well, from their bedroom window, the governor had a view of the chapel walls as well. And one night when he was getting ready for bed, he looked out and saw that all the lights were on.
Uh-oh.
Well, he was sure he had turned the lights off and locked those doors before he came to bed. So he went, but sometimes we mess up. So he decided to go investigate.
There was no David to be like, David, go.
No David.
He was the David.
None of your dogs there to stand there and bark either. He went in. It was empty. So he thought, well, maybe I just forgot to turn the lights off. So he turned the lights off, started to walk away, took 5 or 6 steps, and saw the light come from beneath the door behind him. And he thought, ooh, someone is messing with me. I missed something. Someone is messing with me.
Someone stayed from the crew.
Yeah. Some kids, local kids.
This is the point in my mind where I'm like, hey, there's a murderer in my house.
He didn't think that. This is the governor.
I guess
he's going to catch whoever this was.
Yeah, he can catch bad guys.
So he unlocks the door. He's like, okay. Very funny. He walks around. He looks in every corner, under every pew. He checks the doors. Nobody's in there. No one. And now the hairs on his arms are starting to stand up, and he's like, all right, this is weird. So he closes the door. He locks it again, takes a few steps, and back on.
Mm-mm. I leave them on at that point.
He's like, this is something spiritual that wants me to come back in there, and I'm going to face it.
Don't go.
So he goes back. He opens it the third time. Nothing's in there. He decides he's going to challenge. He takes 2 steps in.
Oh, no.
All right. What do you want from me? What are you trying to tell me? Silence. Suddenly, he just starts going, like, he becomes like conscious of what he's doing, and he's like, what the hell am I doing? This was a mistake. This is a mistake. He turns off the light. He closes the door, locks it again, goes as quickly as he can back to his room, and he's just like, holy crap, like, what did I just do? What did I just challenge? And he gets back to his room. As he's getting ready for bed, he's looking out the window. The lights are still off in the chapel, and then they turn back on. And he's just like, nope on a rope.
Nope.
As we've been saying in the chat. He decided to let those lights stay on. He went to bed.
Just sleep with those lights on. It's fine.
And then all throughout renovation, those lights would be on at night, and he just had nothing to say about it.
No. Put a towel under the door if it bothers you.
Right.
All the priests will tell you, do not challenge the spirits. It doesn't go well.
Well, he was the governor. He wasn't
He doesn't care about
yeah.
the recommendation of priests.
So there's a lot of ghost stories there. Most of them are residual energy.
Right.
A lot of employees report hearing footsteps, both children or heavy adults, running toward them and then getting hit with just cold air.
Right.
And they also hear footsteps out in the yard that sound like groups marching in step.
Ooh.
Which is, it's been reported by tour groups as well. They're just like out there, everyone's looking around, and you just hear the crunching of the rocks under their feet in groups, which is a lot of fun. There's a lot of sounds of doors slamming, locks being locked, that are just like are investigated, and then nobody finds the source of it. So I think it's just probably residual.
Yeah. Locks being locks or locks unlocking. That sounds terrifying. Like, are you trapping me in here right now?
Right. Especially if you're in there like cleaning a cell or something.
I know. They're like it.
The most dramatic story is there was a painter at this time in the 60s, at the time that they were renovating, who was supposed to be painting the dungeon walls. Don't sign me up for that. By himself.
Nope. Don't.
And at one point, he was on his knees working on one corner of the wall, and he had left the door to the dungeon open so he could get more ambient light in there. And as he's painting, he sees the shadow of someone come up and stand in the doorway behind him. And he says, "Hey, you're in my light. Could you move?" And it stays there. And he turns, and there's nobody there. So he turns back to keep painting, thinking they moved out of his light, and the shadow's still there.
Ooh.
Looks back, nobody's there. The shadow's there. As he's trying to like figure out what this would mean, apparently the shadow picks him up, carries him across the room, pinning him against the wall. So he can't, he's like stuck, just pinned against the wall by a force and energy. Finally, the things I read was that he just struggles free, bolts up the stairs, and never returns for any of his gear or any more work. He was done with the jail reno.
Oof. Oof.
I don't blame him.
No. If I was carried across a giant room, I would not.
Well, that kind of reminded me of the story. Well, you know, when people are being pinned against something, that's always so specific.
Mm-hmm.
And is it some sort of paralysis or
right, like sleep paralysis?
Yeah. But the most talked about ghost is a woman in period dress who is seen by people on tours and people who work there. And I mentioned earlier one of the leaders of the rebellion. This is a really sad story. His name was Joseph Mary Plunkett. I mentioned his bride to be her name was Grace Gifford. And she and he were planning to get married on Easter Sunday. Which I think is interesting because, like, who plans to get married on Easter?
It's like, well, we're going to church already. Just.
Oh yeah. While we're there, we might as well.
Might as well.
Well, that's Joseph and Grace, and unfortunately, Joseph, you know, he got caught. He and his friends were like, "Well, I guess we're gonna start this rebellion on Monday. I'm gonna be busy planning, honey. I guess we'll figure out another time to get married." So they didn't get married on Easter Sunday.
Oh.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
And obviously the rebellion happened and he was imprisoned, and she found out that he was to be executed. So the day before, they worked it out. I don't know how they worked it out with the jails, but they worked it out so that they could get married.
Aww.
In the chapel at the jail the day before he was set to be shot in Stonebreaker's yard. So this was described to us by the tour guide while we were there. He was brought in this door at one end of the chapel, and she was brought in a door at the other, and the priest stood between them and did the ceremony. They exchanged rings, and then they were allowed to have 15 minutes together in his cell. And what they say is the only furniture in his cell was a stool, and so that whole 15 minutes, she sat on the stool and he sat on one knee next to her, holding her hand, and they were telling each other how much they loved each other, and kissing and all that, romantic stuff. Like you know, he's dying tomorrow and you still get married. That's a testament to their relationship. Mm-hmm. Well, he obviously got executed the next day in that firing squad in Stonebreaker's yard. And she went on. This is the thing that's like kind of confusing for the whole ghost story aspect. But she went on and lived a happy life like Rose in Titanic. And once she finally kicked it, her family actually donated the ring, or at least loaned the ring to the museum that's in the jail there now. You can actually see her wedding ring.
Wow.
Still there, which is pretty cool. But so this is what I was talking about. The tulpa we were talking about with Darcy is maybe that this story has been told so many times that people who go to the jail, maybe they just assume this is her. But this is definitely the most common thing that the ghosts that people see on the grounds is this woman in period dress that matches the description of Grace.
Interesting. I mean, it could be something like a residual haunting because that would be like this really strong emotional point in your life.
Yeah.
So it could be.
But also, so many people died there.
Yeah.
So many people.
Who knows?
It could have been. And women were executed there too.
But
that is the story that is told. And there was actually an Irish song that was written about Grace that is now considered to be one of the most traditional Irish folk songs. It's called Grace, and it tells the story of Grace and Joseph. So if you're interested,
definitely have to
look that up on the YouTubes and give it a listen. Just Google Irish folk song Grace. All right. That is all the heavy stuff. I'm going to take you on a quick tour of some photos I took while we were there. I actually didn't know any of these ghost stories before we went.
Okay.
Total total Paul Magical Mystery Hour fail. But when we were talking about doing haunts, I thought today I'll share the stories and some photos. So this is before we went in. This is not the main entrance of the old jail, but it's the courtyard where they bring the tourists in. And these are how everything in Ireland is like scrunched.
I was gonna say it's so narrow.
The roads, the hallways, everywhere you go, it's just like, ugh. It's because they were so skinny because of the famine. I don't know. But here's the chapel.
Okay.
The guy's telling us about the story of the wedding in there. And just kind of look through a peephole at one of the cells. But it was kind of pretty cramped in there with a big group. And little Noah. Imagine he's a prisoner. That'd be crazy. That's looking through into one of the cells. So imagine 5 people living.
That's what I was going to say.
In there.
You seriously fit 5 people in there.
Crazy.
I assume they sleep on the ground.
These were actual, these were the cells where people waited to be executed. So this was a different part of the jail. But these were the cells of the people who were going to be killed. And good times. It's a great place to be.
Yeah.
Just a creepy shot down the hall. And this is the inside of the main jail. It's just so cinematic. And I think they've used it in a bunch of movies. But the stairway up, it's a 3-level, big room. And beautiful architecture. But this is what one of the cells looks like from the inside.
Wow.
That's Everly.
Yeah.
But still imagine like 4 other people living in there on straw. This is out in the exercise yard. They said they would just walk in circles to get their exercise. And going into, this is Stonebreaker's yard. The cross you'll see there in the ground marks where they would have people stand to be shot and killed. And how many people were executed here? I don't have the number, but many people over the years. These were the first. This is the main entrance. So right in front here is where people would be hanged originally when the jail opened. Right about here. Mm-hmm. This is the original door to Stonebreaker's yard from the outside. It's still there in the museum. The museum had a lot of really cool things. This is one of the actual posters of the Declaration that was posted on the post office that first day that they launched. They launched the rebellion, and they said there's 12 of the originals left in the world.
Okay.
And this is one of them.
Wow.
I feel like there's a Nick Cage movie in there.
Yes.
Finding the originals. The museum there is really cool. They have, and by cool, I mean interesting.
Yeah.
But they have a bunch of letters from people who wrote to their moms telling them they're going to be executed tomorrow.
Oh.
It is fascinating to sit and read them. And I don't know how they got the letters back to show them in the museum, but...
Yeah, I'm sure they're passed down in their families and then...
It was pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But that is Kilmainham Jail. I have one magical mystery that I had never heard of to wrap it all up. But apparently Kilmainham is actually tied to a magical Irish stone that exists. And do you know any magical Irish stones?
The Blarney Stone?
Yes, that is the first thing we think of. But no, this is actually called the Lucky Stone of Dublin.
I didn't know there was more than one.
I didn't either until like yesterday. But I was doing my research on Kilmainham stories, and this popped up and was part of it. So this is actually a 9th century grave marker. It's called the Lucky Stone. And it was worshipped by people in, the 9th century. It's engraved with a Greek cross within a double circle. I don't know how you see that, but I guess experts
I can see
that.
the double circle. Oh, no, totally. I see it.
And much like the Blarney Stone, people thought it had magical powers. Believers claimed touching or kissing it could cure illness and bring you good luck. So apparently, it originated from some sort of graveyard, and there's not a whole lot of records or history around these kinds of things, but you can find the stories if you Google them. I found most of like a concoction or a casserole of these stories on secretireland.ie. But in 1309, the Lord Mayor of Dublin took the stone from wherever it was giving people all this good luck and good fortune. And he had just built this big marble water fountain in the middle of Dublin, in the middle of town, where people could come get water in the morning. And he decided he wanted to put the lucky stone next to that because there was a lot of people coming through and he wanted the people to have good luck. And so he moved the stone to right next to the water fountain. And then somehow it just started disappearing and returning. And they couldn't figure it out. At one point, it just vanished straight up and reappeared in a cemetery not too far away.
Wait, like people saw it vanish, or like they just, in the middle of the night?
Oh no, like in the morning, people would come to get their water and it was gone.
Okay.
And then it'd be back, and then it'd be gone, then it'd be back.
I'm wondering if it's just like little pranksters.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's a pretty big stone. But,
yeah, that's right.
It did wind up, people finally found it one day in a cemetery at one point.
Oh.
And then there's a story of a neighboring town wanted to have it in their town because it was so lucky. Oh. They sent over some thieves in a wagon, and under the cloak of darkness, they loaded it into the back of the wagon. Mm-hmm. But as the wagon got further and further away from Dublin, the stone got heavier and heavier and heavier till it crushed the wagon, and they couldn't get any further, and they didn't want to mess with it anymore. So they left it there, and somehow they brought it back, and someone at some point thought that it would be good for Kilmainham to have the stone out in front of Kilmainham jail. And then one night, guards watched as the stone took on a human form.
What?
With arms and legs, and they ran away. They were scared. The next day, the person who was running the jail said, "You know what? Let's break it up. Let's stone break it up, because that sounds like wicked."
Right.
And so they brought some stone hammers and started hitting it, and it started moaning and crying out. So they said, "Okay, we shouldn't try and break this up." So in the that was in 1840.
I was just like, how many guards were there? Were there hallucinogenics involved? This is wild. What?
Shared experience. The stone took on human form.
What?
Well, in 1888, Reverend Dr. Alexander Leeper finally decided, you know what, this belongs in a church. So the stone was brought to the Old St. Audun's Church. And this time, to protect it and guard it against any other shenanigans, they bolted it to the wall with iron rods. And that is where it has been since 1888. And it's said that Reverend Dr. Leeper still haunts the hallways and guards that stone at night so nobody tries to take it. And that is the lucky stone.
Wow.
That you can go visit if you on your next trip to Ireland.
Yes, I'm dying to go to Ireland.
Oh, it's wonderful. But that was some magical mystery that I had no idea we were in for. The Irish Lucky Stone.
That is so cool. I love that story.
So
that's a nice way to end it after all of those other.
What's that?
It's a nice way to end it after all the other stories.
Oh yeah. Some good lucky stone that cries out when you try to crush it.
Yes.
And grows arms and legs and takes on human form at night.
Walks away. Yeah, that's
maybe
what it is.
Maybe it's just a runaway stone.
Like, maybe it takes human form. It's like, no, I don't want to be here. This isn't where I belong.
Yeah. Shapeshifter.
I know. Shapeshifter stone.
Crazy stuff.
Yes.
Well, now that we brought up some fun stuff, let's bring the room down again with a song.
You know what I realized? I laughed somewhere in the middle, and I was like, well, I can't fix it at this moment. Before we started, I was like, oh, here's our duet. And I threw it in. Let me see how it starts. And I was like, I thought I said something at the beginning of this, but I guess not. It's like, it's because I dragged the wrong file in.
Oh.
So I'm going to check right before, just a little bit really quick. So this is going to get all crazy in our view, but I'm going to grab this file. Sorry, Serona. Serona's always like, oh my God, your desktop. Stop it. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I can't. No. Oh God, what's happening? I don't know where it just went.
You're fixing your hair.
Yeah. See, that's the beginning of the video, but where is it go? Oh, there it is. Here we go. Maybe. Stop.
Maybe if you cleared off your desktop.
I know, right? Okay, hold on. Let me get rid of that. I don't know where it just... Okay, hold on. You guys don't have to look at my desktop this long. Okay. I will bring back my desktop in a sec. But I think it's playing in here. Okay, let me try this. No. Okay. Hang on. Give me one more sec. Let me go to this screen over here. No. Okay. Let's see. What if I didn't know? No, it doesn't like it.
We cannot edit any of this out. We can't do it.
You can't. You just can't. Okay, let me see if it's like not even letting me delete it from this scene. Stop. Okay. Yes? Okay. I have no idea what just happened. Okay, so let me go to this screen and get this one out of... They're not even looking at us yet. Okay. And that'll be fine. All right. So yeah, we decided to do a duet. It was my idea this time. The last couple have been yours, I think.
And when you brought it up, I was like, we haven't done that one?
I know.
Like, no.
I was like, I'm pretty sure we have it. I've done it a bunch of times. You can all tell us if we have. But I didn't immediately go, oh, I know these harmonies. So I'm pretty sure we didn't do it yet.
Okay. I trust you.
That's my thought.
We
you guys can call us out.
probably have done the song independent of each other,
yes.
But this is the first time.
And you might also be remembering the time, like, because we did the Iron and Wine, Such Great Heights, which has a similar feel.
Very similar feel.
Yes. But we went with Little Death Cab for Cutie. I'll Follow You Into the Dark. Such a perfect little ghost romance, which actually brings me to your jail story with the wedding, right?
Oh, you're getting executed tomorrow? Let's get married today.
Get married because I love you and I'll be there.
Absolutely. So. Perfect fit. Wow.
I know.
Unplanned.
I love that. I love when that kind of thing happens. All right, here we go. So this is I'll Follow You Into the Dark. I'm going to raise the volume much higher. Remind me to bring it back down after.
Love of mine, someday you will die, but I will be close behind. I'll follow you into the dark. No blinding lights or tunnels to gates of white. just our hands clasped tight, waiting for the hint of a spark.
If heaven and hell decide that they both are satisfied, illuminate the nose on their vacancy signs. If there's no one beside you when your soul embarks, I'll follow you into the dark. In Catholic school, as vicious as Roman rule, I got my knuckles bruised by a lady in black, and I held my tongue as she told me, son, fear is the heart of love. So I never went back. If heaven and hell decide that they both are satisfied, illuminate the nose on their vacancy signs. If there's no one beside you when your soul embarks, I'll follow you into the dark.
You and me have seen everything to see, from Bangkok to Calgary, and the soles of your shoes are all worn down.
The time for sleep is now, but it's nothing to cry about, 'cause we'll hold each other soon in the blackest of rooms. If heaven and hell decide that they both are satisfied, illuminate the nose on their vacancy signs. If there's no one beside you when your soul embarks, I'll follow you into the dark. I'll follow you into the dark.
Playfix selection. Remind you to turn it down, you said?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Just doing what you told me to do.
No, it's good. It's good.
You do such a good job when I
that's
throw
so
things at you and then
pretty.
you make something out of it.
I love that.
That's a skill.
They had,
It's a skill.
this song has such good harmonies. And I was like, ooh, I like that. I'll follow you into the dark.
And it just happened to be like perfect for that story.
Yes, once, see, we just talked about that. Like once I was like, oh, it's like them singing to each other before. Like they're comforting, you know. It's going to happen, but it's going to be okay. Oh. I love it and hate it at the same time.
Yeah. You're welcome, everybody. We're ending on a downer. It's Magical Mystery Hour. It's haunts. What did you expect? Happy endings? Come on.
Oh, man. Love it.
Well, thank you to everybody who hung with us. It's past midnight for this recording session. And
Monday.
Everybody's starting their week. It's the spooky season, getting rolling up, revving up to Halloween.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed these ghost stories. Thanks again to our guests. Our guest.
Yeah, guest. Just one.
Darcy,
unless we had some ghosts.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. All the other unseen guests and unheard guests.
Thank you.
But, yes. Thanks for another round of haunting tales.
Yes, this was incredible. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us tonight. We hope that you had a wonderful time. I hope that you find a little magic, a little mystery, and don't forget to stay spooky.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.